welcome to day 2 of the GodisaGeek 2024 Game of the Year deliberations. My name's Adam Cook and I'm here with Chris Hyde.
Yo!
Lyle Pendle. So close.
Hello.
And Mick Fraser. Hello, Mick.
Hiya.
We're here to talk about video games, which is not really a surprise, but this day, as is the historical precedent, if you will, is to talk about best audio and best visuals. It's usually the shortest day of every year's podcast deliberations, which is something I don't usually like to say because it sort of feels like saying that is a surefire way to ensure it ends up being 8 hours long. So we start off, there should be no spoilers today either, by the way. If you are listening in sequential order, there should be none because we're talking about how games look and sound. So in theory, I don't think there's normally any spoilers, but best audio is the first category. But before we do it, anyone want to guess any of the top 5 from last year?
When was a Plague Tale?
No. What did you
Resi.
say?
Resi 4.
No.
I say, when was Plague Tale Requiem? Was that last year or the year before?
I think that was like years ago.
That was the year before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was year before. Yeah.
Resi 4 must have been in there.
No.
it's just
Think
on me.
music.
No.
Think music.
I did.
Oh, Alan Wake. Alan
Sea of Stars had the
Wake
best
2.
soundtrack. Why did we not?
Lyle's
Alan
just
Wake
got it. That was
2.
number 1.
What was it?
Alan Wake 2.
Oh, yeah, that was alright, I suppose.
In 5th place was Dead Space. 4th, Octopath Traveler 2. Baldur's Gate 3 was in 3rd, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder was in 2nd.
Oh, of course, yeah.
This year, though, the nominations for Best Audio are Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Lil Guardsman, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Heading Out, Persona 3 Reload, Banishers Ghosts of New Eden, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Silent Hill 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, The Thaumaturge, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, Metaphor ReFantasio, Star Wars Outlaws, Astrobot, Dragon Age The Veilguard, and Thank Goodness You're Here. There you have it. It's a fairly eclectic list, I'd say, that.
Mm-hmm.
Got all sorts of shite on there, hasn't it?
Yeah. Before we get into it, I need to ask you guys in advance, because people who are watching may have noticed, and people who are listening may have noticed, there is a voice missing. We have lost Chris White. For currently,
He's not dead.
He's not dead. He's just not on the podcast at the moment. He'll be back, hopefully. He has he's sent me his sort of top 5 for the categories, so he can be represented. Do we want them now, or do we want to wait? And I'll call it out if he's listed one and everyone's like, cut it.
Yeah,
I don't think that's
that
going to
way.
happen.
I would do it that way rather than just reveal his hand at the very start. I would do it as if we,
really
like we
feel
say, if we
fair.
pile on something and then I would just have it so that
So if anyone's like
this.
cutting one of his we've not championed, I'll point it out then.
Yeah.
With that in mind, there is, I think, a game on the list that he hasn't listed, but I'm pretty sure he's put it on there, and that's Heading Out.
I think that's true, yes. That was a game I really wanted to play. I've got it downloaded on like 2 things, but
I have played it, and I totally understand why it's on the list. It
Which
sort of
one
does.
is this?
So it's how to describe
Is
it?
it like horror driving roguelike
It's more,
or something?
yeah, like a thriller driving roguelike. So you're like, it's black and white. It's really, really cool stylistically, actually. I will say it looks really smart. And it's kind of reminds me of, for some reason, the visuals remind me of Chase HQ on Spectrum. They're not like retro. They're just, it's got that aesthetic and feel. And the driving is, the actual physical controlling of the car isn't the kind of key part. In between it, you have to make decisions as part of your run. Like, we talked about it on the main pod ages ago this year, I think, and it's like, do you stop for fuel here because the police are constantly chasing you, or they've caught you speeding, and do you want to escape them? You know, there's one. I remember there's one where there's like a child needs some help.
I remember
his
this.
dog's been hurt or something, and it's really cool and clever. And the music. So like the length of the race will be how long the music is the song on the radio is played for, and like the DJ will chip in with world events and stuff as it goes. I think it's on here for a shout out. I can't personally put it into a top 5 myself, and Chris hasn't. But it's
and the
worth
rest of us
shouting out.
haven't played it, so
That's
probably.
the thing. No, but it is cool. It's a cool game. It's actually quite a cool game. It's not one I would like rave about, but it is actually quite a cool game. It's got some interesting ideas, but like it has to go, I think, already. So that's gone. That's easy, I think.
Yeah, that was easy. Good job, everyone. Great work.
Turns out what you have to do is just not have a person on the podcast, and then you just
And then
delete
cut
all
their games first.
and it's easy.
I don't remember anything in Grand Blue Fantasy Relink blowing me away with the audio. I like the game, but I mean, not a big fan of that type of music, really. But the voice acting wasn't particularly spectacular, or I don't think it did anything that wasn't just normal JRPG special effects. A lot of fizz and pop, and I don't think that really belongs on that list. Feel free to disagree.
No, I think no. Okay,
To see who put it on the list. If I'm honest, I thought whoever speaks first is going to be the one who's like, "Well, I put that on." I don't know.
No, I think
game, but
no, I think
Cracking game, yeah.
I think I don't know if this was one of the ones that kind of went on the list early in the year.
Yes.
I think you're right, Mick. It's like it's not bad in this audio. It's just good, and we're going to be talking in the future about things that are really amazing. And I think that's the thing. I think that game is perfectly serviceable in what it does with its audio, and but it sounds really bad, doesn't it? It's good.
I know, but what we have to remind everyone listening or watching is that every game that's on this list is there because we thought it stood out in its category or generally.
Yeah.
All serviceable or better.
But like you were going up against, in our opinion, the 5 best examples of this genre in the year. So like it has to be.
Yeah. I don't think this makes any of our top 5 for best audio, so therefore it shouldn't be. I think there's a lot harder cuts on here than that. So I think.
Do you know what? The only top 5 this makes for me is if we don't do it, although maybe we should do it, is the games I wish I finished this year but didn't. It would be in that top 5 comfortably because I thought, what a great game. Okay, that's gone. That's easy. This is fine. I think Lyle or Chris is right. I mean, Mick and I have brutalised too.
Yeah, go on.
Go on.
I'll say we were on the sort of theme of early games in the year, and I was wondering what people thought of Lil Guardsman for best audio. I remember it having good voice acting and some good bits that we will mention in moments later on.
I agree.
Also,
I think,
by the way, on that top 5 I just mentioned, that's also on there. Games I wish I'd finished.
Oh right, okay, yeah. I think for me this is just the I don't actually remember the soundtrack or anything that much. It was the voice acting delivering the kind of quirky comedy moments that really land.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's enough for it to stand up shoulder to shoulder with some of the others on this list. But I do think it's
fun video game.
It's really fun.
Oh yeah, really nice.
It was such a great,
slept on fun video game. It's
just,
it was such a. I mean, the word charming is sort of.
No, but it's proper
but it is.
It's like LucasArts type comedy type thing, isn't it? It's it's that kind of thing, and we don't get that very often in video games
exactly
anymore.
What it is,
and it's it was just so fun to play. The voice acting is actually really well delivered, and that's what makes it funny. And it wouldn't be funny if it was badly delivered, but I don't think it's good enough as a collective audio package to say that it would stay on this list. But people should go play it, and Adam should finish it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, saying there's a top 5 of games I should finish, maybe I should have made it a top 15, I think, at least. But okay.
I mean, mine's a top 100, so don't worry about that.
I feel better instantly. Okay, well, you cut one now, because we've all cut one. It's a strong list now, that, already.
It's not, yeah, exactly. I
have another one if you can't go.
I have a question. I have a question more than anything, because I haven't played this game. So I need to know if I need to know if Star Wars Outlaws is going to make this list.
That's what I was going to ask. Because is it not just more Star Wars effects, stock Star Wars?
They're really
music?
nice effects.
Yeah, but it's the same shit.
No,
every
but it's
Star
a good
Wars
question
game, right?
to ask. Versus Survivor or something. Are we talking about this sort of audio of what's the audio other than the you are right, Mick. It's like I don't know I've not played it, so I don't know what it does with its audio.
No,
I don't know
I think it is a car, and that's a good shout actually. But I do like the voice acting in it. The main character of I nearly forgot there, but Kay Vess. I do like the main character. I do like a lot of what it does audio wise, because a lot of it's quite. The biggest issue I have with this game, and I may come back to this point, but being on kind of any of these lists is that from what I understand, the game I played both at preview and when it was at review phase, it's kind of completely not the same game anymore. Like, I was reading not that long ago about how they've... I don't know if you guys remember, I was going on about the instant fail stuff in the stealth sections.
Oh, yeah, all the stealth stuff.
They're taking that out. I don't know if they've done it or are doing it, but they're literally removing that. I don't know. Like, I'm a bit concerned. So
you can just go and hide behind a bin for 5 seconds and wait for everything to calm down.
But I'll be honest with you, I'd rather that. It's more that my complaint at the time was, you're talking about this big sandboxy video game, but if I try and stealth in my way through and then I get in the shit, you just go, game over, failed, kick you out, rather than letting me then sandbox my way out of that situation. So my issue with this game being on most lists is that I don't think it's at all a bad video game, but like, I don't know what state the game's in, because it doesn't even seem like the same game I played. And while that probably isn't true of audio, aside from the voice acting, I don't want to be that guy that goes, well, it's a licensed game, it's got Star Wars stuff, because that's not fair. Because what are they supposed to do? Make it so that every time someone shoots a gun, instead of going pew pew, it goes... You know what I mean?
No, but it still remains the point that it is the same
is, if you zoom out and go, am I wowed by this audio? And if they only do that, then the answer's no. And that's
I'm not knocking it for being
no. I'm just saying,
it is that thing. It is the same thing that we've heard year after year.
But it is done well. It is done well. I for one would like farting guns. I'm just saying, and you know, Borderlands 4 next year. Put some farting guns. I mean,
that's the game to do it. Surely
the game.
I feel like High on Life must have had farting guns.
I was gonna say, is it not in High on Life?
Surely.
No, I don't think there's actually farting guns.
I feel that would have been the real one to do it. Yeah,
that feels like that.
Can't remember.
I don't think that knife has been topped yet.
Star Wars Outlaws doesn't make the list. It doesn't floor me. It's a well-executed audio design. I can't remember of the things I played with the many bugs I encountered. I don't remember audio being one. But that doesn't, you know,
that's a many bugs, quote, isn't it?
Yeah. No audio bugs in this one. Yeah, okay, that's gone. Mick, you said you had another one.
No, it was that. I was going to question that. But
yeah. All right, I'll come back around. I got this. For the same reason we got rid of Lil Guardsman, Thank Goodness You're Here is another funny game with very good voice acting that makes the funny be funny, but, you know, still isn't a top 5 for audio. It's got Matt Berry in, so, you know, give it a little push for that.
I don't know. It's just the only thing about that game is if they didn't nail that audio, it would be dreadful. That game would be dreadful.
Oh yeah,
because the game it's one of those very rare games. It is a comedy game. The whole purpose is not to make you like go, oh, I was a badass at those platforming sections, or oh, my aim was like, you know, killer there. It is just designed for you as a narrative experience to enjoy and laugh at.
It is. It would be number 1 on the best comedy game of the year for me this year. If we have that as a list, I'll.
Do you know what?
A list of what? How many?
Yeah, it would have
be that and Lil Guardsman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be tough. It would be tough to fill a list out on that, unfortunately. It's not a genre many attempt.
No, because it's easy to do terribly.
Yeah.
And Thank Goodness You're Here absolutely didn't. I think I called it the best comedy game ever in my review, which again, there's not that many of, but it really, really did land. And I do think the voice acting in it is wonderful. The northern accents of all shapes and sizes are especially, you know, for a UK podcast, a little bit of a booster as well.
And also they kind of I mean, it's not audio, but it's adjacent. Like, I do like the fact that they use the dialect in like even the menus and stuff, and it's like there is a complete 100% complete like commitment to the bit.
It was,
which is always like admirable, because I can imagine someone who doesn't. There were, I mean, if you went, I think you put it in the review about there was an option you specifically called out in the review, one of the northern dialect parts.
Yeah,
I think if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have known what it was.
Yeah,
so it's a real commitment, like, you know, doff the cap sort of thing. But I think I'm the only other person on the pod that's played it, and I don't think it would make my top 5 if I'm honest, because we're looking at more general. Like you say, if it was best voice acting, perhaps.
Yeah, but I would very happily push it up there for that. And it maybe would scrape onto my top 5 personally, but if it scrapes onto mine, and it wouldn't be on anyone else's, it doesn't belong on the overall list, does it? You know?
No. Okay. Any naysays to that going. Don't think
No.
there is.
No.
How many are we actually down to? Looks like about 10.
11, I think.
Oh Christ.
No.
Okay.
They all look. See, I'm not a big proponent of like audio in games unless it's a game like. No, you know what
So
I
glad
mean.
you're
though.
here.
No,
Thank
it's
goodness
just
you're here, Mick.
Right, but I say it every year. Like the audio in a game is either I don't notice it at all, which means it's probably doing its job, or I hate it. Or, you know what I mean? So I'm looking at the list and I'm thinking of standout ones like Silent Hill 2. I haven't played it, but I know what Chris was saying last week about the audio and things like that. But I would only question I could only question some of the games I've played, and like in terms of audio, like I don't know. Apart from the voice acting, I'm not sure where Dragon Age the Veil Guard drops on an audio.
I do
list.
like the music, but I would
yeah.
say maybe it's just because I remember certain parts. I feel like there could be more of it in terms of the music. Like it does very, very much like they've gone for the kind of almost Mario-like thing of like, so you're in this biome, so this is the theme you hear, and then there's like a battle version or something of that theme, and then and I might be completely being unfair to it. But I also think you do have to consider that the voice acting is, I think, mostly very good.
Mostly, yes.
I think very good when it matters and when it counts. Like when you need it to be good. Where if it was bad, it would be like, oh, you fuck that. I
particularly like the female rook that I had. It's got a Welsh Geordie twang going onto the voice, which is just really good.
I do think the character.
Yeah.
The character voice, the Rook voice acting is very good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Execution is very good.
It's certainly not a game I have any problem with.
No,
no,
and I think
not
this
at all.
is the thing. I think you're right. Like there are probably a couple of like areas where you go, oh, the music's a little bit more noticeable.
Yes.
When you go
that
to certain
song
areas.
again sometimes as well.
Yeah. But sometimes you don't notice it.
Yeah.
And
I would say that also are they a little bit of what they've tried to achieve means you have to have, say, Rook, who can have, I'm going to just say a number and it's probably wrong, but say 8 potential voice choices for this Rook. Let's just say male or whatever, might have whatever, and you know what I mean. Let's just say 8 overall choices for voices for the main character. The interactions are going to change based on delivery of and tone of whichever Rook you chose. And how and the option you chose for that dialogue moment, like there'll be 3 or 4 choices. So I certainly think what they did was very good, but there are definitely moments that sort of don't land. Although I think mostly when the important stuff happens, it does land.
Yeah,
like
but I'm not. I mean, I'm not knocking it, but it's like
No.
just to clarify, like when I say, like I said earlier, I don't often pay attention to the audio in games, but like go back to like Plague Tale a couple of years ago, like you couldn't ignore it, like it was so
but I think
good.
that's a fair comment then, though. If you're saying, I'm not sure you are you saying like the Veil God is not that level for you? So
yes, I'm saying I'm saying I didn't have a problem with it, but I also didn't, and no part like off that list, for example, like Astrobot, which I guess we'll come to in a bit. But Astrobot, for example, every piece of music I noticed because it was fucking brilliant.
The sound, we're talking about it anyway. The sound of the controllers, like that. The audio is a massive part of that video
and
game.
It's just fantastic. It's so ingrained in every single thing that you do.
And this is the thing, right? 100%. Certain games, I guess, are more the audio of it kind of is more about what the game is. I'm not saying that Dragon Age doesn't have voice acting or anything, but Astrobot is kind of a different beast altogether.
100%,
and I think so. I do think there's that. I agree. I think there's Dragon Age. There's probably a couple of others on this list as well in terms of.
Well, I had 2 I was going to offer up, but with Mick jumping in on the Veil Guard, I feel like I have to throw these into the hat now.
Yeah. I have at least one more that I'd put on the same sort of.
Well, I was going to say Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Persona 3 Reload were 2 that I can't really think of. Not now, I'm doing it the same thing. They're on this list because they stood out to begin with, but compared to the others, I'm struggling to think of a standout thing.
I think Call of Duty is kind of, and I know this also sounds a bit dismissive, but Call of Duty is kind of, it's almost expected to have that level because Call of Duty is so polished. I
find that Call of Duty the most difficult game to talk about on these every year because
it's so ridiculously polished, and yet it's so.
But like, the argument's such a weird one because I could sit here and go, well, yeah, but if any game, if the thaumaturge had the billions of dollars spent on it, that you would expect that level, but that's not fair. They still have to execute. So I find it.
I do find it difficult. I think there is an argument, isn't there, though, to say, have they moved it on? Like, and it's ridiculous because you go, well, actually, it's up here, and have they moved it up here? Whereas up here is above. I don't know, other games, and it's like it's always a difficult one every year.
I don't know if any of you have played the campaign of Call of Duty.
See, I haven't played the campaign. That's what I'm interested to hear about.
But whereas okay, that like the multiplayer stuff is kind of what you expect. There's call outs from player characters. There's explosions. There's gunshots. There's that kind of thing. The campaign audio. I mean, I said it in the review. There are so many. This campaign goes to crazy places. Like there's stuff you don't expect it to do this year, which they really kind of went all out on, to the point where. I don't want to spoil things, but I wouldn't even put it in like a best narrative or anything like that. But it was unexpected, and they execute everything perfectly. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a little bit where even gunshots, even gunfights. Sorry, when you're in the middle of a gunfight and someone's talking to you, and they've got that spatial audio going on that Call of Duty does really well, and it's just like there's pandemonium everywhere, but you can pick everything out and you know where everything is. You know where gunshots are coming from. That sort of stuff's really difficult to get right.
Like,
I mean, look
like
at games
the 3D audio
we spoke
and,
about,
like spatial audio stuff. You mean like that is something I must admit, had I played it, I'd probably be singing it.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about it in the Stalker 2, like run up and things, because that game, it couldn't handle it. Like they didn't do a very good job with that audio. It was all over the shop. And I know there's different levels, and like you said, they've got all this money and whatever, but Call of Duty,
just to be clear, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying because I'm just saying it's easy to say that. It feels both true and unfair, but
also,
should we park Call of Duty then? Should we
I feel like
there's also if you talk about just voice acting, the voice acting's fucking phenomenal in that game. Like
But
the audio and
not
visuals
to
together.
be that guy, they are hiring actual voice actors that are like Hollywood level, aren't they? To do that,
yeah, but I mean, Baldur's Gate last year was in the list, and that had. I mean, they weren't necessarily.
A lot of games do that now as well. Like that's not a new thing.
Well, hang on. Let's pull back a bit.
I feel like Call of Duty is not a cut right now because we're able to.
I didn't expect to be arguing in the favour of Call of Duty.
No, I know. I
did it week, by the way. But
I think we do need to have a conversation about certain games on this list, which I think. Similar to the Veil Guide, you mentioned Persona 3 Reload. I'd like to put Metaphor into that conversation as well in terms of, look, how much in terms of audio are these games going above and beyond? And again, it's not saying that they're bad. It's just saying, are they really the level of some of these others in terms of audio? I want to have the conversation because...
I mean, that's why we're here, damn it.
Yeah. All I can say is not for me. Like, the thing I remember most about Metaphor ReFantasio's audio is when I first heard the battle theme,
with the guy going,
yeah. So this will be a niche reference for you, but what that reminded me of 100% was way back in the day, Rick Mail in Bottom doing his rain dance on top of the roof.
I'm gonna have to watch it now because I do
so. I Google that.
Yeah,
not necessarily now, but at some point, and stick that over the orchestral music playing.
Yeah.
And every time I heard it, it's a long game. It's a very long video game. It was at least 15 to 20 hours before it stopped. Just cause it's never like blaring, but it's just in the background, and occasionally you'll hear that bloke going whoa, or whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
And it just made me go every time because it's. I don't know, and I saw a story afterwards where the bloke said he didn't mean to go that hard on that song, and it's like, well, mate, you did. You really did, and I both salute and also daft.
Yeah.
I really like the game, but I am struggling to think.
I really, really liked the soundtrack, especially for Metaphor, and I also think all the voice acting is very good. So both sides of that. I think the soundtrack's sort of a bit weirder than a lot of Atlas games in Metaphor. It has some. I mean, there are some bits that are very familiar, like the place that is not the Velvet Room, but is definitely the Velvet Room.
That is the Velvet Room.
Has the same style of music, the same like classical, relaxing sort of theme going on. I like the battle theme for being weird. What a weird
I like it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
the only one I can recall.
Same,
Like,
for good reason. Like, I like it when a game's silly and makes me laugh.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's bad. I'm just saying,
I also
like,
think, I
compared
also
to
think that for
RPG
metaphor-
soundtracks, it's nowhere near the best for me. It's just good. Again, and this is what I want to talk about when we're saying about these games versus other things. So, I want to have conversation because other people might disagree, but
I think a lot of that as well is that I think metaphor over the other like Persona style games, because it's basically a Persona game. Let's not pretend anymore.
No.
Is that like a lot of those have a lot of like repetitive soundtracks in that like you go to school every day, you go to the town every day, and you like do a lot of traveling around and going to different places and different themed dungeons and stuff. So there's less repetition, which I think means it's a little bit less memorable. It would definitely be a decent way up on my own top 5, but I'm also not like super like gonna fight to the ends of the world. And then for Persona 3, I actually like that the audio in that, especially the soundtrack, a lot more. Persona 3's always had my favorite Persona soundtrack, but then it being like a remade soundtrack, which although I do think they did really, really well, like I think they remade it incredibly well. They shook things up a bit in a few different ways. It's wonderful. It still makes me think it's sort of not that new this year, so I don't know if I'd necessarily want that anyway.
That's fair.
It's a good point, actually.
We have got 3 games currently that we've discussed and neither decided on, and we've got Call of Duty that we have discussed and held for now. So I think we need to pull back a little bit and go Dragon Age: The Veilguard. What are we doing with that? I will say, and I have to say now, that is on Chris White's list. It is number 3.
Okay. I haven't actually made my list for this. I'm just kind of...
No, that's the thing. I certainly haven't. No, I mean, I never make the mini lists. Only my top. But we can only have 5 games, and it's like...
Yeah,
I think
it wouldn't be on my
understand...
top 5 of my 5 of this list. It doesn't make it for me.
I think the thing that I love Dragon Age. I feel like as long as we treat like I say, I think that's why I wanted to have the conversation about Metaphor and Persona at the same time, because I think as long as we treat them kind of not necessarily the same decision each time, but I guess under the same microscope, I think that's the right thing to do. I get it. I think the voice acting is really strong, particularly for Rook, but I do get the soundtrack bit. I do. So I would be happy for it to go based on some others on this list.
I'm not sure, but if you're happy for it to go and Mick's happy for it to go,
I'm just looking. To be honest, I'm looking at some of these others. Right.
I think it would be my number 5.
It might end up being something like my number 5, and
if it's your 5, my 5, Chris White's 3, it feels like cutting
Lyle's
it at
27
11.
and Mick's 10.
It's like my 7 or something.
Yeah,
it's good. It is very good. Obviously.
It's probably one of those ones that, in the grand scheme of things, we're maybe cutting a bit early, but it's still a cut. Maybe that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way. I went down this list while you were talking then, and I could only find... If you take Dragon Age of the Veilguard off, I could only find a top 4. Like, the rest of them would... Well, like I said, it's my 5. So I'm happy. If you want to vote and take it off, let's take it off.
Sorry, because to be fair, maybe I'm misunderstanding how people feel about some of these other games that I have not played. So
the games you mentioned are not on my list. I'm trying not to show my hand this early. There's let me offer a cut. Let me offer a cut.
Let's cut Metaphor an easier cut then, because even Lyle was like, we should probably get rid of that.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
okay, that's gone. We're down to 10. Down to 10. Shall I just quickly, because we're half an hour in, shall I just quickly list them?
Yeah, go on then. Down to 10.
So we have got Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden, Silent Hill 2, Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, The Thaumaturge, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, Metaphor ReFantazio, Astrobot, and Dragon Age: The Veilguard. So far.
Now let's talk about some of the ones that I don't have a clue how they are. Like the Thaumaturge. What's the audio like in the Thaumaturge?
That's not the one I was going to cut, but that's fine. Well, can I just, before we go to the Thaumaturge, can I just offer a cut that I think I'm the only person who's played it, so it makes more sense to? It isn't.
Yeah, do it.
It isn't on Chris White's list. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, I think, is a cut. And I know I'm going to piss people off that are listening by saying that, but I want to explain why.
Well,
in a similar way to Call of Duty Black Ops 6, it's like it's obviously had a lot of effort put into the visual and audio spectacle of that game, right? No question. My problem with it is, right, they lean so heavily on the mental health aspects of that game in terms of Senwa's inner monologue. You don't hear conversations that are happening. Now, I don't know if it's a particular audio setup I had. I have checked with someone else and they confirmed the same thing. So you will be walking a lot of the game is about story and you're walking along with someone. I couldn't tell you the names at this point, but I do remember there was one specific time it happened and it's like one too many for me. I was walking along and there were two other people with me. And those two people were having a conversation about where you were going, why, what was going to happen, and it was like, well, this is interesting because I'm learning about the past of these people who I am with. Then Senwa started an internal monologue that was so, it's the whole point in that game is that it's like orally impressive. But I was like, what? Like, there's a lot of time we're walking. Could you not have held that off? I guess
if it's mental health, it couldn't be held off,
but
right?
That's the thing. So I feel weird saying that's why I'm not. But I found it a confusing design because as someone who has had, I don't hear voices. Well, we all hear voices to a degree, if you know what I mean, but not like
I'm hearing yours right now.
Well, yeah. But like I just found where the first game felt like an incredible atmospheric example of that sort of stuff. I don't want to get too heavy, but like it felt like an accurate representation, and there was at the time all that discussion on how they'd hired certain people to make sure of that. It almost felt like they went over the top to the detriment of the video game. Does that make sense? Felt like.
Yeah. See, the thing about Senua's Saga was like it didn't have. Well, I thought it was a load of shit, to be honest, like in terms of the actual gameplay. I didn't think it was a good game. As an experience, it is what it is. Like, you either relate to that sort of thing or whatever. But
I think it was sold the wrong way. If it had been sold and marketed as a walking simulator style video game, no one would be complaining because you got what you would have expected. The fact it was made to look like an action,
I think what it had two things going for it, in my opinion, and that was the audio and the visuals. Like, they put so much effort into making it look incredible and sound. But it's like I said, I think I said it to you when I was playing it, and it was, and I know it was supposed to be overwhelming. That was the point. It was supposed to be, a lot of the time you were supposed to be overwhelmed because you were in Senua's, POV, and
so
she was.
That's why I say I'm conflicted on criticising that.
It wasn't necessarily a good experience, and that's also wonky to say because
it's not a good experience to have mental health issues.
I get what you're saying. I think if it seems weird to cut it because from an audio list or a visual list, because so much was put into that. I found it
confusing that somewhere a game developer had a story and a narrative all built out into this great big universe that they've created, and they wanted to tell you about these characters, but deliberately chose to. It was akin to. God, this is going back some. Days Gone. You remember when that first came out, and there were bugs with the audio where the radio would just start playing over a cutscene. You were talking, and it was like that sort of thing, but it was intentional. Like this, it wasn't. It's not a bug. I don't think it's a bug. I think it's intentional. It's about the fact that the game's about her. She's thinking about what she's thinking, and you can hear her thoughts because you're there in that headspace. It just seemed to be an odd decision to do it while they were revealing stuff that you would be useful to know storyline wise. Like I say, it does feel wonky to discuss it in that way, but it's
not easy cut, but it's one to think about, isn't it?
Well, if you're talking purely best audio and you're being really objective about it, probably belongs on the list. But if you're talking like our personal experience,
well, it has to be that. Otherwise, we can't look at objective.
Yeah, so it's what the word best means, right?
Yeah,
because it's best comes with a sense of kind of memorable enjoyment, and if we're not talking about
that's probably what I'm thinking, because like I mentioned Call of Duty, how ingrained the audio is, and it's really cleverly done and stuff. And then you've got games like we said, Astrobot, and then we'll come to some of the other games on this list that like Silent Hill 2, where the audio is very immersive. And I know that's what Senua's Saga is going for, and I know that's in many ways what it
has
achieved.
Anyone else played it? Lyle, have you played it? Because I want to say you wanted to, or
I wanted to, but then I heard kind of reviews akin to what Mick said, and so spent my time elsewhere this year, and that's like.
But again, I feel like if you go into it knowing it's a walking simulator,
I mean, it's not a long game either. It's not like it's going to take decades, hours and hours
with
of your
respect,
time.
I kind of don't want to go into it if I know it's a walking simulator.
But that's what I mean. That's absolutely fine. I just, if
I
like Chris's list and he reviewed it, it's not on mine. At some point, we have
it's
to
an incredibly breathy
games.
game as well, though. It's just she just breathes constantly loudly.
Oh, that sounds annoying.
It kind of is. So even when you've not got,
you should have led with that, Mick. Cut it.
Maybe when you've not got the clever mental health stuff going on, you've just got her going.
Hang on, I'm not saying like they get it completely wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying that there are moments where I found the design confusing because.
SGFC.
I don't want to get like too into the mental health side of things because this isn't the pod for me to talk about my issues or anyone else's issues. This is a celebration of games. But I can't think of a moment where I've ever like someone else has been talking, it's been important, and I've just like gone, I'm going to blot you out because I'm thinking of this thing. And this thought is more important, and I can't listen to when I'm part of we met up a few weekends ago. And I don't remember us walking around. And Mick was chatting, and I was just like, no, I'm thinking about the film.
Depends what you guys are talking about. Like, let's be real here.
But like, at some point, we have to cut 5 games, and I'm the only one here who's saying I've played it, and I think it's a cut. Chris White sent a list with it. It's not on there.
Yeah. I mean, I played it, and I
keep forgetting. Well,
I mean, different to it based on this list. If you want,
it has to go then, right?
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah, easy.
I do think it's the only thing really important about that game. Not important. No, that's not what I meant.
Celebration of games.
Standout. Yeah.
I can't wait for it to get cut first from best visuals. Is it on there? It is on there.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic looking.
Someone offer a game up because we're down to 9.
I wanted to hear about Thaumaturge before.
Yeah.
Sorry, you did the Thaumaturge, Chris Hyde.
Great accents. What?
Like, I guess
so many.
I was literally about to talk about visuals.
Character.
Because you literally like just kind of said about it's nice looking. And I was about to go off on visuals on the audio one. So audio.
A couple of them do a walking tour of Russia in their accents.
Yeah, exactly. So this is like set in like Second World War, Russia, Poland occupation, and yeah, it's literally a. Yeah, Mick said it best, like a tour of all of the accents you come across when you in terms of the voice acting is really good, I will say, in terms of whether it's the main character, the families, even just random prostitutes that you meet in dingy alleyways. There's a lot of interactions because you're a detective and you've got to go around solving various mysteries by both being, a cross between, Sherlock Holmes and I don't know, David Blaine or whatever it is, Aaron Brown, and I was going to say Paul Daniels. Wow. So the voice acting is actually really, it's a really interesting voice because you don't, everything's sort of like, we'll come on to another game later on where it's like proper strong accents, but a lot of games tend to be like Americanized accents. I haven't played a game with this many sort of like Eastern European strong.
See, that's the weird thing about it. I'm playing it as like now. I can't tell if the voice acting's good or bad. Some of it's definitely good, but I can't tell if it.
The main characters.
Does that make sense?
The main characters are good. I think quite a lot of them are good, and the execution of the writing is very good.
Is it that it's authentic and you don't get that in game? Is it one of those things where you're like, this is actually how people actually talk, but I'm not used to hearing that in a video game?
Yeah, I think that is definitely part of it.
Okay, that's why I'm struggling with that. Is it good or bad?
Because
I'm so.
It doesn't do what Stalker does, where you've got a character called Pavel who talks with a Lancashire accent out of fucking nowhere in the middle of the.
I will say
it does do that, Mick. Just so you're aware, like it does.
I haven't got that far yet.
I will say I wasn't alive in 1945 Poland occupied Russian occupied Poland, so I can't say for definite that it's authentic, but it feels like it should.
Very few Yorkshiremen probably wandering around there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing.
Maybe.
Like, there's random, suddenly, like, very British gentlemen and Americanized and American accents, and I don't know. Oh shit! History. I don't know. Is that right? I don't. There's no point of it where I'm like, oh, this is shit audio. But
I mean, let's be honest, they're not talking Russian and Polish either,
well,
are they?
no,
So-
of course they're not.
No,
But, like, that would
no.
be a really hard game to play. I think.
Jesus, that would be
All-
impenetrable.
Like, has that happened? Is there a game that is like the equivalent of going to a cinema that and watching a subtitle-only film? I don't mean like Simlish or like we talk about Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, where it's like not dialogue. Like, has there been a game where it's like, no, this game is in French and the same is subtitled?
I mean, I play the Like a Dragon games like that, but
Oh, that Steel Rising
Shit's
game,
alright.
that had a lot of characters talking French, and you had to read subtitles.
I started playing Metaphor like that and then had to change it straight away.
Yeah, no, that's the first. To be fair, that's the first. Metaphor's the first game of Atlas I think I've played with English voice acting. But it felt like it was at the start, like in a medieval England. So, like, this feels like
It does feel like
I
that,
started it and went, nope, I'm changing that to English straight away.
Hang on, there's bits. Oh man, there's bits in that game I don't understand because there's like a couple of characters that are incredibly Scottish, and now I want to hear.
We
their
are
Japanese
flip flopping
versions.
across games
Yeah.
here,
Ooh.
but there are a couple of accents in Metaphor Fantasio that are so. You know when you go, I didn't think you'd look like that based on your voice.
Oh yes,
Like it's
I
so
love
like that. Like the first sort of big bad that you come across, right? That's not the big bad, but the first sort of major villain. Purple fella,
Purple.
right?
Yeah.
Gee,
no, I agree, but I don't mind that.
I just couldn't. I couldn't take it seriously, but I also don't care about. I don't mind that because
No.
it's like, you know,
I was born in the darkness.
No, unfortunately, that's what you think he would sound like. He
Oh,
doesn't
right.
sound like that. He's
sounds
like,
like Rabsy Nesbitt.
yeah, but like super high pitched and like angsty.
I was
I
just
could
like,
probably do Rabsy Nesbitt, but when I do Scottish accents,
No,
Anne
please
tells
don't,
me
Mick.
off.
Don't do it. It's no, please, no.
I will
Right,
say-
hang on.
Bringing it back to the thaumaturge, right?
Bring
I
it back
think-
to anything that we can potentially
Yeah.
cut. Quite honestly, at this point.
I do like. I'm kind of saying the same thing, I guess, about what I was saying about Metaphor, in the sense that I really like the combat music in this game, but I can't think of. It's been so long
I
since
can't
played
think
that.
of
You're
any
gonna have to
music
chip
in
in.
the thaumaturge. Oh, the combat music. No, you're right.
Combat
I
music,
can
yeah,
hear
yeah,
that.
there's combat
but
music.
in fairness, I played it today, so
Yeah,
I'd be concerned
I'm
even
recalling
for me.
something from like what
Yeah.
May or something.
no, I could definitely hear the combat theme.
Yeah,
But I can't think
but-
of any other music in that game.
no,
I
don't
played it
think there
last
is.
night, and all I can recall is Victor with a W.
Yeah,
Schultz.
Victor.
Shulsky. Yeah.
Is it a cut?
I think it's a cut.
It sounds like
For this
it.
particular list, great game, but I think
It's
audio,
really good.
probably
I
not.
think it's a cut.
I think that probably is, and I think Metaphor is by now. I think we've talked about that.
I agree, but I'm.
I mean, it is on my list, but if it's not on anyone else's, then
Then we're
I
down to
think-
7.
Just going
which
to check.
is,
Chris is not on there. Neither of those games are on there. No. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Chris. You helped.
Well, I didn't help you.
Well, no, but I'm all
Kind of
right.
betrayed you in some way.
Yeah,
we
well,
delete.
you heard how I...
Yes,
Okay. Bye bye the thaumaturge. Bye bye Metaphor Fantasia. We're down to 7.
I need to actually think about which of these I want
We
in the
haven't
5
talked
now.
about basically the top 4 on our list, so I do think we need to start talking about them. I'm going to just go out on a limb here and say that it feels like Banishers is a lock. The fact that we've avoided talking about it at all until now feels like that means we either
it's
really
a lot
like it.
for me, but again, it's
me.
mainly a lot for me because it's well, the voice acting and the music between the two of those. I
Best
think
audio,
it's-
isn't it? I mean, what
Yeah.
yeah, but
Perfect.
also it is a lot for me. The voice acting between the main leads is just fucking.
I mean, I'd go so far as to say I think that Banishers Ghost of Eden has some of the best voice acting I've ever heard in a game.
Yeah.
Not every part of it, but the lead actors,
Red in particular.
Red
But
McRae, I
Red.
think is
But
possibly
But
one of the
I
best.
do think Antea is solid, and
Oh,
I think
100%.
that their
There's genuine
interactions-
chemistry between the two.
That's
That chemistry
true.
would not
Yeah.
work without that voice
Yeah.
acting at all, and it needs to work throughout the entire game. And also,
It's almost like if it was characters. Remember we did Deathloop a couple of years ago, and we had to put the two leads at joint
Well, mate.
Wherever they were on best
Well,
character. 'cause
let's
it's
not
the
preempt
same.
future days, shall we? Let's leave that one alone just for now. But yeah, for me, that's a lock.
Yeah, 100%.
Like I'm sorry that it would be for me.
Well, okay, we can come back to that then because 3 people have locked it, and it's on Chris's list. Lyle, have you? How do you feel? I mean, like say 4 people got it in the top 5. Okay, well,
no, I think it probably is. I didn't play a lot of it, but everything that I did play of it, that
you
is
can't.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me ask you, because I know you've mentioned on the previous days we talked about Silent Hill on Silent Hill 2 on day 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason I bring this up now is because I think you and I are going to have very, very different opinions on the voice acting. Because I think it's superb, and I think you think it's dreadful. Well, maybe that's harsh.
Not dreadful, but I'm not a fan of it. But I do think for audio, for basically everything else, it's incredible in Silent Hill 2. It's like the audio, other than the voice acting, and the visuals are the things about Silent Hill 2 I can't argue on at all.
Okay.
It's a lot of the other things surrounding it. And I imagine Chris White on his list has Silent Hill 2 fairly high, if I know anything about it.
He has it as high as it could be.
I assumed as much, so
and I
think
totally
that's-
understand why. And I know. Well, I've got a
I would have bet money on it. So it's
yeah,
like,
but
Yes,
so I will say that like there's things about I think we talked on day 1 about how Bloober Team, well, not for Lyle so much, but for someone like myself and for Chris White, absolutely nailed Silent Hill 2, and it was not necessarily a surprise. But I think we did even talk about it in Best Surprise at one point, because it's like that we knew they had the game in them at one point, and this is the one we think they did. I think the audio, in terms of the soundtrack specifically, is like top class, because I think the majority of the reason why Silent Hill 2 is so unsettling and scary, for want of a better phrase, is 90% audio, 10% game. If you played that game on mute, I don't think you're scared of it in any way, shape, or form. You might be a bit disturbed by some of the characters and enemies, but I don't think they're...
Yeah.
You know, they're remakes of the original enemies, and I think in the years that have passed, I think there's been far scarier enemies, you know, like locusts running at you, their heft and the look of them, you know, from Gears of War, are terrifying in a different way. Like, we've moved past it just being some sort of grotesque imagery is scary because people are desensitized to that stuff. It's an old video game. The audio, it's and I remember them from the original, the sort of sudden staccato like violins, and the music will just randomly start building orchestrally around you to the point where you're like, what, and then you realise no, they're just messing with you, which is such a cool thing.
And it worked.
Oh, it worked then, it works now. I do really like the voice acting for that game. I think it has a little bit of the what did we talk about earlier with Thaumaturge, where I don't think you get games where the audio is delivered in a realistic manner, because it's not real, it's a video game, in the same way that movies have a dramatic intent when they deliver dialogue. And it took me aback a bit, like how James is... it doesn't feel like he's performing to a mic or a camera. It feels like he's just James and just talking, and I really dug that, and it added to the atmosphere. I can't really fault Silent Hill 2's audio, if I'm honest, in any way.
It's got to be in a top 5 then, hasn't it, really?
I just literally cannot think of an issue with that audio for that game, like from soundtrack to audio design.
Sounds like a lock.
Yeah.
That's 2.
I think Astrobot is a lock.
I think Astrobot's got to be a lock.
I think Astrobot not being in the top 5 would be madness. Banishers we've locked. I better start putting some bold on these, because that gives us a bit of an indication as to what we're going to want to cut. We haven't yet talked about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and we haven't talked about Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. They're the only 2 we haven't talked about.
I haven't played enough of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth to comment too much on it. I love it. I just didn't have time. Just haven't had time.
What is it about the audio for Like a Dragon I can't figure out? Bear in mind, the part of this game I played with English voice acting, which I thought was quite fun, but not necessarily breathtaking, but a bit campy.
The one technicality that could... I don't want to be the host anymore.
You've got to do it. Good job.
I don't want to say what I'm about to say, but it's true, and I have to raise it. The one technicality that could see this game booted off a top 5 best audio list is that the English dub is, by all accounts, very, very poor. And that's not to say that the people did a bad job doing their job. It is that this game is a very specific style, has a very specific humour and delivery that sort of doesn't really come across, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a lot of what? It's that kind of game when it's like,
I don't know. I know it's a technicality, but like
no. But I also
you might play that game through with that audio, and it's not.
But by the same extension, and I hate this because I fucking love it, right? But like by the same extension, like I play it with it, the Japanese voice acting on, and because I'm reading what they're saying, not hearing what they're saying. If you know what I mean, because I don't know Japanese.
But I bet you do know some Japanese now, don't you?
Oh yeah,
there's
arigato and all that sort of stuff.
No, there's
but
phrases
whatever.
they say in Like a Dragon / Yakuza that you picked up on.
Nani? Anyway, carry on. But I'm not doing that again, by the way.
No, never. I wouldn't expect you to be honest.
But I guess the point I'm making is like when we talk about other ones, like we're talking about Banishers and stuff, and we're like, the voice acting is great. I'm like, I struggle to critique it in the same way because I'm like, I'm reading what they're saying rather than hearing the delivery of what I read.
Though, man, but the personality that both.
No, I
Kiryu
agree because then I
Ichiban's,
read what they're saying and it impacts me. Some of the stuff that they
like, what Ichiban Kasuga, right?
Yeah.
Kiryu is Yakuza. Kiryu is or was RGG Studios in terms of that's who you think of with an outer, and they know it because the next game in January stars Majima. Yeah, those were the Yakuza guys.
Yeah.
To have made a fan of the series, and I don't know if you're there yet. I know Chris White is. I don't know if you're of the same ilk, but to not only have changed the style of the game, but to have done it with a change of protagonist, and for all the fans to be like, "Yeah, make loads more games of Ichiban, thanks," is incredible. But so much of that is because his personality. While Kiryu is just so cool and this amazing character, Ichiban, while still being like hard and strong and all that, couldn't be a more different character. And the interactions those two have in the game kind of nail that home a little bit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that's down to the voice acting of Ichiban. Whoever plays the Japanese version of Ichiban's voice actor, that personality that comes through, you root for that dude who is speaking to you in a language you don't understand. I think that's quite impressive.
It's so difficult because the thing is, right, you're right. I'm sitting there thinking it. I don't know whether it's a combination because I think the visual execution of the facial expressions alongside the delivery of the audio is what makes that as well, and the direction of the scene as well. And therefore, I don't know. Again, I don't want to cut this. I love it, but at some point, I'm going to cut too. And I'll be honest, I'm looking at it. I'm going, I'll cut this before I cut Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So,
now, Christopher.
I think Veilguard is an easier cut. I think Veilguard probably needs to go. In fact, I think probably Veilguard and Call of Duty need to go at this point. And then
I was going to say it when we were talking about COD. It doesn't. Even if we did a top 6, which we're not going to do, that's cheating. But if we did a top 6, I don't think Call of Duty would be on there. It just doesn't feel like it represents the 5 of us. I know Chris.
I would say the reason, and it's the reason why Call of Duty either gets 5 or doesn't make this list every year, is because of who plays it.
And literally 3 of us haven't played it. I know, again, Chris isn't here. Mick's played it because he reviewed it. I would question whether he would have even played it if he hadn't reviewed it, if that makes sense.
Probably not.
There is a series, and I'm not going to say what it is, but there's only one series I have more fatigue with than this game. And that's not to say it's bad, because it's not. It's on this list. But it just doesn't feel like it represents the 5 of us in the way that the other 6 do in some way.
I think
even
it's
you've
just
not played Call of Duty as much as you normally do, Chris, I don't think.
No,
I think it's just a game that is
but I'm not sitting there going, oh, but the reason this year I played it more than I did last year is because the audio. So
it's objectively very good audio.
Yes.
Yeah, but that feels like such a not us thing to say. Oh, it's on the list because it's objectively.
No, that's what I mean. I'm saying that's why it shouldn't be on the list.
We sat on Hellblade. That's objectively I think it's fine. Like, this is our list. Yeah. Everyone else be fucked. Like,
then I'm going to propose we cut Call of Duty now to give ourselves a chance at a 5.
I would cut that now. Let's do it. Pull the plug.
Do it.
God, right, okay.
You'll cut Veilguard and let's get on with it.
I mean, he said it, but I kind of agree, right? Like,
you're not going to say that Veilguard is better audio than Rebirth, surely?
No, I can't. I literally would. I think I'd spontaneously combust if I said that.
Yeah,
I think I'd be struck by lightning. Like, you
would literally walk to your house and slap you around the face. Yeah. Like, I love
Veilguard. And you should.
Yeah.
You should.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But there's no game ever that I've played other than Remake and Rebirth where I don't get sick of hearing the audio stings over and over again. The things the characters come out with during combat. I don't get annoyed or fatigued by
Can I just say before we cut Veilguard, and I think we should, right?
Mm-hmm.
I also don't let me forget. I have a good reason we could actually. So carry on, and I've just thought of something that game does that I've just remembered. Go on.
That he hates.
No, no.
I will say I do think the main story of this game and how that is executed through both the voice acting and the accompanying audio of that is done exceptionally all the way through. The main stuff, not the side stuff, not the companion stuff, because arguably that we could talk about story later and all that sort of stuff later, but the audio delivery of the main story beats creates some amazing moments and is done really, really well. I think really well. But looking at this list, I still think it should be the 6th on this list.
So I've come up with this, I think, a reason that we could cut it and feel less bad about it. Now, I don't know if you'll agree, Chris, because I don't think you had this experience. I certainly did, and whether that's because it was pre-patch, pre-release, blah, 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 I don't know. I haven't been back since to play enough of it. You know the thing they do with the conversation, like when you're just walking around chatting?
Oh, yes, this. We talked about this during the review.
Can we talk about this? Because I read Mick's review and went, that's wrong. So I'm
afraid I'm with Mick. So I had incidents where they would not only start from the beginning again,
they may have patched it because it was not
God of War like. Let's put it that way.
No, so they have clearly patched it because I actually think that was a really good part of it because it's like for me there's a spectrum between God of War and Spider-Man, right? Where you either do the God of War thing and it's amazing, or you do Spider-Man and go, right, we've got to do another 3 minutes of going back to the start of the conversation.
Which Spider-Man do you mean? Like the Sony, the PlayStation 5 one?
Yeah, they started the whole conversation again. If you went near...
They did for me in Veilguard.
No,
Banishers did a good job of this as well. Banishers also
what they do in Veilguard, and it must have been a patch because I was amazed you guys said this. Is they literally go, "What are we talking about?" They go back
they do.
No, they do that sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
There are other times where they just clearly didn't.
They did it consistently with me.
No.
Or what I had.
I had one conversation between I think
Lucanus. It was for me quite often, and often
it was the dwarf. What's it? I can't remember her name.
Harding.
Yeah, it was between whenever I had Harding and Neve in my party.
Yes,
they would constantly restart the conversation.
Do you know? I
and every time I did anything,
depend on who's in your party because there's loads of dialogue that is incidental to the 2 people in your party. Because I noticed that was a cool thing. Like there was,
which is amazing, but then that's been Dragon Age throughout.
I don't want to get spoilery, but there are like interrelationships that if you have the right 2 people in your party, they will be like, oh, so I see you're having a relationship with... Not like that, I mean, but that's what they're saying.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool, actually. But I also had just as many where it was like,
I won't spoil
what are you
it,
talking about? And then they would start a sentence or 2 again, and it's like...
They were chatting about my sex life in front of me before I knew I'd had sex. I was like, okay.
No, I hadn't had that.
I had that.
Well, that doesn't sound good. That sounds...
Well, it was a bit predatory, but listen,
you created that atmosphere.
Yeah. I think it's. I'm glad you brought that up because I read your review, Mick, and went, "That's not my experience." So they must have patched it, which I think is a good thing. Because I think more games should be
because we had the discussion. I think did we have it via text where you were saying that, and I was like, "He's gone mad." Chris was going like, "Oh no, I think that's really good," and I'm like, what? I was like, well, that's again, but I guess that's like I say, they patched it, or we just got lucky or unlucky, depending on who was in the party. Are we cutting Dragon Age of Elgard?
I would.
I think so, right? Yeah.
It's
It is
good
number
stuff.
3
it's
in
number
Chris's
6.
list. I think it's.
It would be 6 on my list from this. Well, no, maybe not.
Out of
I didn't
these
play
6,
Silent Hill
it's
2.
nice.
No, I didn't play Silent Hill 2, so I couldn't.
I didn't play Silent Hill 2, but I
couldn't-
can't
I think
I
it
would
would
have
be
say
to-
that as an argument.
the
To
list
be
would
I'd
honest.
have to have
poorer
it by
for Silent
default,
Hill 2.
but yeah.
No, I'm not saying it stays above Silent Hill 2.
No,
I'm
no,
saying,
it's not my point. No.
It sounds like it's.
I
a
think
cut.
it goes. Yeah.
I think of the 6, like you say, that's the one that is number 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, murder it.
Well, I didn't.
It's dead.
It's dead now.
Well, here we are. We're down to 5. Where do you want to? Where do you want to?
Well, we
do?
almost cut Like a Dragon, so I'm just sort of wondering what that means for its position. It's probably
That
not
might be
1.
5th. I think that
5th.
might be 5th. I think
Astrobot can't
Then-
be 4th for me. It can't.
I think
It
Astrobot's
can't.
got to be probably 1 or 2. I think.
Astrobot has to. I mean, like for me,
it's my
Astrobot
one.
is like it is very much a sum of its parts, like how it plays, how it sounds, how it looks, and if you take any part of that, and I know that's a weird thing to say, but like the Astrobot design, I so critical to how joyous that game feels. I mean, think about the levels that are based around audio. I don't want to get into spoilers, but let's just say Tree.
Oh,
And
Tree
it's not
indeed.
just Tree. I think take some of the songs out of those levels, and they're still good levels, but they are made like the casino level is another one like that. To me, the music just adds to that atmosphere so much that like it makes it. Astrobot has to be a high one for me. I
almost think that 3 and 4 should be where 1 and 2 are, and then we raggle on.
pardon. We do what?
then we wank. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, let's
normally
do
we
that.
do that after we've stopped recording, but we can
I
do
would
that
say
now.
pause the podcast. but let's get on
Patreon
with it.
exclusive. Let's go.
I mean, I had one before we started, but I mean, I'm sure I'm ready.
I had 2.
Blimey. Well,
One with each
Of course
hand.
you did, me.
always got to go one better.
I don't know. I'm sore now.
Do I
Yeah, I
reveal
think-
Chris White's list at this point, or does?
Yeah, I think so.
So his number 1 is Silent Hill, but his number 2 is Astrobot.
I think Astrobot and Silent Hill are in the 1 and 2 spot somewhere. I personally think
I
that.
think Astrobot's number 3. Number 3.
Think.
No, sorry,
don't
no, I
think-
don't. I think Silent Hill 2 is number 3. I've actually said the wrong video game name then. No, I think Silent Hill 2 is
God.
number 3. I do think it's amazing, but I cannot get past in my head how intrinsic Astrobot's audio is to the game, and I cannot get past the fact that Banishers, I think, has possibly the best voice acting I've ever heard in a realistic term. Like, I know that, like, God of War, for example, Kratos, the audio design of every character in that game is amazing. But they're, by definition, not grounded, are they? They're gods. Whereas Banishers, the voice acting is so fucking good. But at
Sounds
the
like
same
Rebirth
time,
is 4. Sounds like Rebirth is 4.
It's really hard for me.
That
I'm
sounds
going to get
wrong as
out.
well, though.
I'm going to get outvoted on this, right?
sounds
And
like
I think,
Rebirth
and I
is-
think the reason I'm going to get outvoted is because I haven't played Final Fantasy VII before, right? So I was hearing all of Rebirth for the first time, if you
it's
like.
magic, innit,
Right?
Chris?
And like I remember having conversations with you, Adam, and it was like, were these the songs from, like, obviously they're redone, right? But are these
Some
the
of them are
songs?
new as well, but the
And some of them are
music
new,
is
right?
just-
And like
The battle theme alone, I will just listen
I mean,
to
yeah,
on
the battle
loop.
theme alone just wins it. But like, so for me, a lot of this game is new, whereas for other people, it's like, oh, that's cool. It's a bit like it's not quite levels of Persona 3 Reload, obviously, because it's completely remade.
Yeah, but to
it's
be
like,
clear, these aren't the original songs, like you say.
no,
These are- they still had to
that's why I want to be
take
clear.
them.
I'm not
Those-
shitting on it for that, but
Yeah, but they're
I'm
beloved.
for-
That's
for
another
me-
impressive thing. They took
Yeah,
the
but
beloved things and like,
this is
yeah,
what I
they're
mean,
great.
though. For me, like, I'd have it really high because I'm like, for me, it was magical. Like the voice acting and the audio in that and the soundtrack in that game were magical to me because I'd never heard them before. But I'm in a completely different kettle of fish to everybody else.
How about? Hang on. So, no, Lyle, you have played Silent Hill 2, haven't you?
I have.
Chris.
But I don't like the voice acting in Silent Hill 2, so if we want to push it down...
I'm now sort of working out who's played what and trying to work out how that... Would those two as a bottom two make sense?
To everyone apart from Chris White, yes.
Yeah, but look, it's on the list. He had,
and I haven't played. They're the ones I've played the least.
To be clear, by the way, four of these games are in Chris White's top 5. The only one that has gone is Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and we were all like,
all right then, haven't we?
Yeah, so like they are all there. The only one that isn't there, just going between. What is different? He's got Like a Dragon. No, Like a Dragon's not in his top 5, which is remarkable.
Right. Which is interesting because we put it at 5, so that's quite fair as well. Like, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I think we've currently
So
who are just listed. We have Silent Hill 2 at 4th, Like a Dragon at 5th. I think those two are right.
I would personally flip the top 3 around and go Final Fantasy, Banishes, Astrobot, 3, 2, 1. And I would be conflicted on Banishes and Astrobot, I think.
So for me, it's the other way around. It's Banishes and Final Fantasy that I'm conflicted on.
Where do you think Astrobot would be, Adam, in yours?
Number 1.
Where would it be number 1?
I think it's magical. Like, so much of the game that sums up... Do
you agree, Lyle?
Yes, 100%.
The
what
word
about you,
that I
Chris?
use for Astrobot is joy, and the audio is so important to that joy.
I would probably. Fuck it.
They're so fucking
I'd put
different.
Astrobot at 3 and be umming and ahhing about the other two for quite a fucking while.
That's what I'm getting at. I'm the same.
Like that's where I would put. That would be my list of this. Not to disagree with the Astrobot conversation at all, but
the three are pretty high up and pretty,
when it's like what how it is when we do these lists and people you think of best audio, they're the two games that come straight into my head every single time, and then Astrobot does come in not too long afterwards, but they're the two for me that jump in, and so that's why I'd have them at 1 and 2. Now I'm happy to have a conversation about 2 and 1 flipping around every day of the week because I love both of them. But for me personally, Astrobot would be 3. But I understand why it's 1 for some people because it's fucking lovely.
We had the conversation, I think, you and I, away from the pod, where I think it is such a difficult year because for many people, Astrobot's like, yeah, wins everything. But the difference between Astrobot and a game like Final Fantasy Rebirth it is literally like it's like the two sides of a video game industry games. Like, They are so different.
Yeah.
Where is it on Chris's list, Astrobot? What number?
It was 2, wasn't it? Yeah.
Number 2.
But his 1 was Silent Hill, so out of the 3 at the top, it is his.
Yeah,
top.
he was Silent Hill 2 at top, Astrobot 2nd, Veilguard 3rd, Rebirth 4th, Banishers 5th.
So look, just going by numbers, you'd have it at number 1, Lyle would have it at number 1, I'd have it at 2, Chris White would have it at 2, Chris Hyde would have it at 3. I think that makes it 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the list that I've just done there, and I feel.
That's what I do. But
I feel okay with that, and I feel it's representative of the gang.
I don't know. I don't know if Astrobot would be number 1 if we. I mean, like I said, you guys have got it at 1 and 1.
But Chris would have had it at 1 if Silent Hill's already not there. If we've already knocked Silent Hill down, then it's basically 1, 1, 1.
Yeah,
if we're doing it by vote, and I mean, that's not how we always do this. But
I mean,
what would be your number 1 on that list, Mick?
Me, Banishers.
Oh fuck! Because I was hoping you'd say Final Fantasy 7 because that would make it a little easier.
No, that would be. I think Banishers would be number 1. Final Fantasy would be number 2. Astrobot would be 3 for me.
I'd be absolutely fine if that. The thing I'm thinking more of is whether we should consider this or not is, I fucking want to celebrate Banishers for being the thing that it is, and actually because you say it is from the voice acting point of view, and it's different. I wasn't expecting it to be that fucking good. I've not heard voice acting on that level, and I know it's not just that. But if that isn't there, that whole premise of that entire game falls on its arse.
But
if that voice
feel
acting,
like that's the same for Astrobot.
That's what I'm saying. And if that's the reason why we're saying Astrobot should be 1,
but I don't think it's the same for Final Fantasy. That's fantastic.
I'm
not knocking it. But I don't think the audio was the thing in Final Fantasy Rebirth that made me love it. It was part of it.
Because like when I go back to my
me too.
childhood, like I was importing the like orchestral live versions of the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. So it is one of those for me. Is if they got it wrong, you fucked it. It's really important that they don't get it wrong. Is what, sorry, Lyle?
I was just saying, fucking hell, this is a bit difficult, isn't it?
I just think, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like the fact that Banishers is third. I just think
The
I
third
think
best audio of the year is not a bad thing.
No, not
And it's
at all.
above Silent Hill 2. Most people would say that was the best, and we didn't. We shoved that right away.
Do we go with Banishers at 2 and Rebirth at 3? Based
That's
on
how-
they
if-
had
if
something
we-
to work with, like in
Yeah.
Silent Hill 2, they had something to work with, I guess. I mean, it's a lame excuse, but I'm trying to think of a way we can get it over the line.
If we can't budge Astrobot, then I would rather do that. I'm not sure Astrobot should be number 1. I think Astrobot should be probably number 2.
I just don't
It's
think
difficult,
Banishers has the best overall audio of those 3 games. It has great audio, but to me, it's not on the same level as Astrobot or Final, and perhaps fairly so, because it wouldn't have had the budget either game had. I wouldn't think, but that's you can't
think
judge
the
based on
thing-
budget.
The thing with Astrobot is, like you said, it's very different. We're not talking voice acting, are we? With Astrobot, we're not talking necessarily.
no.
Do you know what I mean? We're not talking,
No.
the atmospherics of battle music and stuff. We're just talking the fact that that game is the through line of that game is joy from start to finish, and it never drops a bollock once. Like not like none of those songs. Like even just
That's a
when
box
you're running
quote, that
around.
is.
Yeah.
But even when you're just running around like the hub world and it's playing like that Wild West kind of music and stuff, do you know what I mean?
I worry
Everything
people
is
are
just-
forgetting, like when you get a bot and you can shake them around.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
there's
see,
so
that's
many
the stuff
little
I'm not
moments.
thinking of now, and it's like
like when the rain tip taps and stuff, and like
I
the
think about
footsteps.
opening up a little like treasure area full of gems and spinning as they all tingle around.
look. I'll tell you what, right? We're arguing over how much in increments we love one game more than the other here. I think whichever way we flip that round, we're probably going to have the same argument. Really, like between.
I've done something to the list. Tell me how you feel, each of you, because I could that for me, I could go like, yeah, all right, fine.
I think, although like I would, I'd try if possible to fight for Final Fantasy VII. I think based on the room, it feels like everyone's either Banishers at the top or Astro at the top, so those should probably be the top 2. Sorry, Final Fantasy. I mean, it's still third. It's fucking amazing. Like,
So if I took what's important in the game itself, that's why I would argue that Banishers is higher than Final Fantasy, because I feel like Final Fantasy VII is fantastic. The audio, the music, all that stuff is fantastic. It is very much there. I don't think that the voice acting is always great in Final Fantasy VII, but that's just maybe an opinion. But I don't think, like, I keep talking about what they do with a certain character that drives me crazy in the live with a voice actor doing it, just fucking really pisses me off. But I do think that Banishers the voice acting, the audio is more integral to it. I think it's more important to that game, and like Chris said, I think it lives or dies on it.
I agree with what you're saying, but I could also make the exact same argument for the saying that the music to Final Fantasy VII is that important as well. But I'm happy with that list. So you guys,
I can live with that list. I'm not saying Banishers should be above. I'm not gonna argue against Astrobot, because it's like arguing against someone I love. It's kind of pointless. Like I'm happy for that to be number 1.
I think we should lock it in, because I think we're going to argue about minutia forever.
We're going to go
and
around
we
in
have
circles.
we have
now,
different
aren't
top we have different top games, but I think fundamentally what we're saying is the 4 of us all on this kind of pod at the moment, we all love this top 3. We're just arguing over the podium places, and it doesn't really. Not that it doesn't matter, because that undersells the whole point of the pod, but it doesn't.
And I can see Chris White just nodding now where Astrobot is.
Yeah.
Without Silent Hill where it should be.
I don't think that part is happening, but yeah. All right, I'm
He's going
locking
to
it
be
in.
taking a vape puff and going,
Yeah.
whatever, man.
Taking a swig of a 2-litre bottle of
Is
something
he Mancunian
fluorescent and
Oh, he's not far, is he? Where is he?
No, he's not actually. Yeah, I'm locking it in. Right,
Lock
in
it
fifth
in,
place
mate.
for best audio is Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. Fourth place is Silent Hill 2. In third place is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. In second place is Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden. And the best audio for 2024 is Astrobot. And there you have it.
easy.
So the second category, the final category for day 2, is best visuals. I want to see if anyone's got any idea about last year, and I'll give you a clue. It's very similar to best audio. Shock.
It's Alan Wake 2. Yes, I remember it getting both.
What's number 2? Do you want to guess? The same one? Mario Wonder.
Sea of Stars. I'll keep saying it until it
That
won
was
something.
number 5.
Resi 4? Did that make it last
No.
year?
Octopath
Oh.
Traveler 2 and
Octopath
Final
Traveler
Fantasy
2, of
16.
course. Yeah.
Which, yeah, that is a stunning looking video game.
Yeah.
This year, though, best visuals. Christ. Okay. I'll warn you now, those listening, there's 25 on this list, so I'm going to have to pause for breath. Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth, Still Wakes the Deep, Lil Guardsman, Stellar Blade, Unleaving, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Nobody Wants to Die, Tekken 8, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2, The Plucky Squire, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Ultros, Silent Hill 2, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, I lost my place, Tales of Kenzira Zhao, Ayuden Chronicles, 100 Heroes, Astrobot, Cat Quest 3, Black Myth, Wukong, Thank Goodness You're Here, Visions of Mana, Dragon Age The Veilguard, Mario and Luigi Brothership, Dragon Quest 3, HD, 2D Remake.
Well
I feel like
done.
that one I had to sort of
Good job.
work my
Yeah,
lips
that was
around
that was
because it
that
was...
was 2 breaths in one.
I mean, you had to breathe like a pussy, but you did well.
So much for this being the shortest day, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I think there's a lot in there we want to shout out because they look cool and they just want.
Yeah,
I think it's just a lot we want to shout out.
Yeah.
Like Unleaving is on here, and I've got a horrible feeling that's a Chris White game, and he is not.
I don't even know what it is.
No.
I
Me
do. It's a
neither.
very, very pretty game. It's a kind of inside Limbo style video game.
Oh, right, okay. Right.
There, I do want to add, right, and this is an interesting thing, and it's a little bit behind the curtain. We obviously, I mean, listen, I don't think people are stupid. I think we have to record these before we put them out. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of hours. There is a game on Chris White's list that none of us have played because at the time of talking, it's not out. But he is playing it right now for review.
Oh, check in, Benny Big Potatoes.
Oh.
I was going to start it today, but I got... Right, that's playing the Thermitage and...
Turge.
Turging it off. But I will say, because it's not on our list of you know, it's Indiana Jones and the Great
It does
Circle.
look really good, and machine games make very pretty first-person games, so
Yeah.
it doesn't surprise me.
I will say, right, his list is fascinating to me. Like, it's just really, really interesting list. We'll get to that. But we can't really put Indiana Jones on. He's the only one that's played. There's always a game that comes out late December that we just haven't had. There's only so many hours in every day.
I'm hoping to play some of it when it releases before, like, the last day, just in case.
There's a chance it might come up again in these podcasts, but we have to get
Yeah.
some things banked ahead of time. You're listening, I'm sure you appreciate the hour you put in. It just isn't possible.
It's a lot.
But we can cut Unleaving because it's not on his 5 and no one apart from me knows what it is. Really properly indie, that one. I want to talk about the game next to it, Dungeons of Hinterberg, since it's just there and it's on my lips because it was right there. No, I think only you and I have played that, Mick.
Yeah, I think I put it on the list.
It's a unique looking video game.
It's got a
Yeah,
nice
I
little
think
style
that's-
to it.
Yeah, I think that's why I put it on the list. It's a bit of a the characters sort of animate in a funny way. You know, there's not much like emoting to it. It's just got some nice colours and like some nice scenery. It's that kind of game. I
can't think what it
it's
reminds me of, and it's been bugging me since I played it.
Yeah.
It remind me of something. It's a bit Hi-Fi Rush-ish.
yeah,
but
kind
not,
of
because it's kind of almost got like a filter
well, it's kind
over
of
it.
yeah, it's like cell shaded, but it was cartoony in the first place. So it's kind of
yes.
I put it on the list because it's quite unique, but it can come off quite easily in this list. Like I wanted to give it its moment because it is a pretty game, and it is one of the standout things of it because it's not a bad dungeon crawler, but it doesn't do an awful lot that I haven't seen before, except the visuals, which I did think were very pretty, very nice. But and it does some cool stuff with the level design as well. There's a couple of those dungeons that you go into that are just like unexpectedly. Like there's a couple of them where you're just on mine carts or something like that. But there's a few of them where they sort of go really sort of otherworldly, and you're walking on the ceiling, or it does some interesting stuff for the levels. But yeah, it's a quick cut, I think.
Okie dokie. And I promise I'll hand it over to other people to cut stuff as well. But I want to get this game out there early on because there's 23 to cut, and I just want to know where we all stand on it. We had this discussion over best audio. I don't want us to continue to go on about money, budget, but I don't think Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is making our top 5. And I just want to say that early because I just don't, for the same reason it didn't audio. It's just not the sort of thing we celebrate as like, no one's saying it looks shit. No one's saying it's being cut now and it's 23rd on the list. Not at all. It is just, it doesn't make my heart sing. You know?
I would also say that like Call of Duty's audio is more sort of standoutist than its visuals.
I don't know. I mean, and I'm not arguing it stays at all. I'm just saying, like, visually, the cutscenes. There's nothing compares visually.
I think Hellblade 2 does in spots, but I would also.
It's uncanny valley stuff, isn't it? So, but yeah,
I mean, the one who's like stabbing it straight.
I've not played the campaign, so I'm coming at this from a sort of like multiplayer approach, and the visuals on that.
Here's another question for you,
good.
Chris. This is perfect question for you, I think, of all people. If you walked into a room having not played Black Ops 6 and last year's Call of Duty, how long would it take you to be sure of when you and we're talking only multiplayer that I was playing a different game? And again, I'm not shitting on it. I'm just saying they have a
I agree. I agree. The point. This is kind of kind of the area we were in the last category. I agree with you, and I haven't played the campaign, which I think is where the visuals will shine.
Yes,
and I'm sure Mick stands by that. So
objectively, again, it might be one of the best looking games of the year, but I think on our list, like what we're doing. No, because
it doesn't. Like I say, objectivity doesn't come into these.
It doesn't move you in any way. That's the thing about Call of Duty. You don't look at it and you don't feel.
I said years ago, I feel like with realistic visuals, like that's great, but that's not why I fell in love with games.
Listen. I'm the only one that's playing it currently, and I think we've talked about it for too long.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Gone.
Great.
I just wanted to get that one. Like I say, it's not that I don't like it. It's not that I have anything against it. I just, like I say, it's realistic visuals are not why I got into loving video games. Like when I was playing Spectrums and shit, like you know what I mean? Like it's always going to be for me. I like it when a game looks nice, but I like it when a game's interesting visually more.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Someone else cut now.
See, I thought you were going to go down because of what you're talking about there. I thought you were going down the Senua's Saga conversation early.
It's
or
not
is
in my
it too
top
early when we've got 22 on the list to do that conversation? I can cut some easily before that.
I think again, Senua's Saga is another one that looks very, 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 very good, but it also sounded very. And I don't like.
I'd be a hypocrite to say that stays, but Call of Duty goes. Is all I'd say.
Yeah, and again, it's not a game that I looked at and was really blown away by it because the game wasn't blowing me away anyway, but
the visuals, the environments and the characters are amazing, right? Visually amazing. The same way Call of Duty is, and I'd say for the team size. But when they get to the puzzles, some of it's a bit rope. Some of the puzzles
it's also I found it to be very empty. Like it is very bleak, a lot of it, and it is very barren and things like that. But there's not a lot. Like you see a game like last year with Final Fantasy 16 where you've got the just based on the landscapes and the views and the vistas and things like that. This game could have done something like that.
My view on this is I can go outside and open my eyes and the visuals are really good, but if I'm having a shit day, I'm not having a good time. Do you know what I mean, though? Like, I've got the best visuals going outside, but like it's about everything else that you're experiencing at the same time.
It's almost like we perhaps need to not justify or rename this because best visuals is such an easy shorthand thing to say, but we are almost looking at sort of best aesthetic, not just like what's the best.
Not just this is objectively best.
Always
like
said
they put
that.
more money into this.
We've always said that.
We've always
because we had the Sea of Stars conversation last year about this, didn't we? About like it's because it's not, the graphical fidelity of Sea of Stars. It's not. Well,
I'm going to cut Senwise unless.
No, go.
No,
No,
again, I
just-
think we're all saying the same thing. Do you want me to
Kill
rattle
it.
off some cuts?
Kill it, as Lyle says.
God, yeah.
Right. So I played it. I think it looks lovely.
Ooh.
Played well as well. But
Oh.
Tales of Kanzera doesn't make this top 5.
Agreed.
It's got some. It's very colourful, very lovely. Like I say, does some nice things with the powers and stuff, which are all very colourful and lovely.
It's another
voice acting
purple
was
versus
all-
orange game, though,
voice
isn't it?
acting,
There's
sorry,
so many purple
the
versus
animations
orange.
are great,
games.
but
I don't think there are many though. I mean, I can think of the one that Ubisoft made. I've completely forgotten the name of that had a similar design where you switch between the orange and the blue. And there's of course Ikaruga, the shooter. I'm glad we've put it on a list here and given it a call out because
I
it's a
think
cracking game.
it's difficult because, like, obviously, I don't think it's as good as Prince of Persia, but
I don't think it's as good as Mini Shoot Adventures, if I'm honest.
No, I'm just saying, like, proper, like, 2D platform Metroidvania, I guess.
Yeah.
But, like, it's very colourful and lovely. I do really like it, and it deserves its shout out, but it isn't going to make a top 5. It just isn't.
It's a nice
and if you
looking
like
game.
2D
Got some good
Metroidvania,
animations.
you should maybe give it a look.
Yeah, like it's one of those that I would really encourage people who are Metroidvania fans to not sleep on too much. There've been a lot of them this year. I won't deny, but
it's got some good ideas.
Yeah,
and it looks
it's well
pretty
made.
nice as well.
but by the
Yeah,
go
you
on.
were going to say Ultros, weren't you?
I was absolutely, because I would not even say that Ultros is the best looking Metroidvania in that style. Lyle, what was the game that was early access and came out where you were inside of a dog?
Sorry.
Oh God, what was that?
You know the game because you reviewed it. And it's the one where there's the thing.
I reviewed it.
There's there's a really cool bit in that game, and I'm going to keep going so you have time to think of what it is, where you literally have to drain fluid, and when you drain the fluid, the level drops, but then it cuts back to the real world, and the dog's pissed on the operating table, and it's like it's a really clever thing, and I still can't think what it's called, but it's a game about. It's quite a short title, I think. It's a game where you are inside
Biogun.
Biogun. I would say Biogun is a better kind of mutant-y inside of a body thing. Look, I don't.
Yeah.
Mick, I'll be honest. I don't like how Ultros looks. It kind of is.
I don't either. I'm not. I don't. I completely. I didn't like it. I mean, it's got very striking visuals. It's a decent game.
It's like what was that fucking game by Double Fine? The way Radiation.
Yeah.
Rad. Something. Where it was, the whole world is radiated and it's like really bright because of it. It reminded me of that, and I didn't.
Yeah, no, I was going to suggest Ultros as a cut before Chris said Sal, because it's all kind of gross as well.
That's what I mean. Like, it just doesn't do it for me. I mean, it's like a combination of Biogun and that.
And it's very psychedelic, which I'm not a fan of that kind of color scheme anyway. But I just, but it is unique, and it's had its moments.
We are rattling through these. We're down to an easy 19.
Nobody Wants to Die.
You must have put that on here.
Yeah, that's another one I put on there just because it's very, very good looking. It's got
trailers and it looked stunning, but like.
Yeah, it's got a really cool aesthetic, which when I say it out loud doesn't sound that unique, but then I can't also think of many games that do it.
Okay.
If you know what I mean, like, because it's a cyberpunk noir. So yeah, exactly. It looks like the 1950s, but it's cyberpunk future, and it's got some really good. It's a very story focused game, so there's not a lot of walking around like in the world. You're in set environments. You're solving crimes. It's got a lot of detail. There's a couple of moments where you're sat in your car, which is like a flying car parked on the side of a building, and you can look around the city and the traffic's flying around underneath you and all that sort of stuff. They're really visually arresting. And it was just a game that was kind of came out and then just got forgotten instantly. Despite being pretty good, like it's a pretty good detective game. It's got, the puzzles are quite interesting, and it's really, really pretty to look at. But you can cut it from this list.
Come on, Chris and Lyle. Come on. We got our guards up now. Come on.
I did cut one.
Oh yeah,
Tekken 8.
It's like Tekken, isn't it?
Just punching characters, isn't it?
It's just muscles and shit.
Really, really good looking game.
It's like when it's a car game. We get rid of fighting games and car games.
I have nothing to add. I have nothing to add. I'd say it's a very good looking game.
It's a good word as well, Tekken 8.
Tekken 8, yeah.
17 on the list. Tekken 8 is gone. Lyle,
Right,
your turn.
I'll do one. I'll do one.
Yeah, come on, box strong.
Should we do Little Guardsman again? Like, it's again very nice looking. It's very like Saturday morning cartoon.
Can
well
I
animated.
just counterpoint that if I was going to cut one of the kind of cartoony looking games, I really like Little Guardsman, how it looks, whereas Thank Goodness You're Here does feel a little more generic. And it's not generic, I don't mean it is. I just mean more, I think Little Guardsman's got a bit more...
I was thinking...
Because the medieval
I was kind of thinking both of them would be cut. So if you want to cut one first, like, go for it. I like them both. I think they're both very colourful. I think they both have a lot of character.
I mean, I haven't played Thank Goodness You're Here, but I really like, I guess, like the overall sort of visual style of Little Guardsman. And I think it works really well with the comedy that we talked about earlier. Like, I just think I'm not saying Thank Goodness You're Here doesn't, by the way. I'm just saying
they both
ask, Lyle,
the same.
Like, is it just me? But you know, Thank Goodness You're Here. Obviously, in terms of maybe it's still because of the humour, but the visuals kind of remind me of like Viz comic in a good way.
Yeah, I can see that.
And like, I think they both go, don't they?
I can't imagine a world where either of them are on our top 5.
No.
Okay,
I've got a slightly spicier one as well, if you want.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, good God, yes.
Okay. So I think half of this game looks amazing and half of it looks less amazing. Yep. And I think it's the Plucky Squire. I think,
and you're saying the 2D part looks amazing and the 3D part doesn't.
I think 3D part's like sort of fine.
Yeah,
you know?
I was going to say I feel like I've not played it, but I thought that as well. I thought the 2D looks lovely and the 3D part just looks all right. Yeah, it's fine.
I'll jump on a sword and say it. 2D part looks fucking great. The 3D part looks like it was made in Dreams, in that Sony game Dreams.
There's some good stuff in Dreams.
Absolutely, but
a very good Dreams bit of game there.
But you can't put half.
Well, that's why it's one of the 16 best-looking games of the year.
Exactly. There we go.
Wow, that's I
Pluck
don't know
it.
Is that spicy? Can you go spicier? Because that is.
I can do another one.
Bosh, Astrobot.
Just you know,
I think. What about and may all of you strike me down? Cat Quest 3 on this list.
Oh, no, that was my next one.
It is lovely looking.
It's really lovely looking.
It's one of those where I can't really fault how it looks because I think it does everything really competently, and as a package it's a lovely game to play. People should play that. It's so addictive
really
to just play and just
I
rattle
think
through. It's not that long.
in like a day or 2, 3.
It's
maybe.
it's quite easy, but not like passive with it. And there's loads of different build stuff.
It's Moorish. It's Moorish video gaming.
Yeah,
it's a package.
And I'm glad it's getting a shout out here because like I don't know many other areas where it might get talked about, but everyone's just having bash at that, so to speak. Like, because I really
like the overworld as well.
Yeah,
it looks like a map when you're walking around.
That's what I mean. Like, the whole
like
style of it
just
about
works
that
really
game. Well.
It's such a weird game because I kind of like everything about it.
Yeah,
there's nothing about it that's like there's no. Maybe that's what it is. It's kind of zero friction, that game. Like it is.
Yeah.
It is all rubber meets the road or whatever. I don't know. I'm fucking making up words now, making up sayings. But
I know what you mean. Like I think I'd find it really hard to say no. It has to stay because of these standout things. Because
like, would you feel weird like if someone said to you, "Hey, Chris, what are the best looking games? You know, you work in games, don't you? What's the best looking games?" Well, the 5th best looking game is Cat Quest 3. You say that, and you go, "It's not though, is it?"
Yeah.
No,
because they'd immediately go, "What, really? That one?"
Well, no, they'd probably say, "What?"
Yeah, what is that? Yeah, I think that's
down to 13 now. I've got an easy one, but I'm welcome anyone to jump on some.
I want to ask about one.
Okay.
Because I know one of us spoke about it quite a bit, but I've not even seen it in motion. But my daughter loves it, which was Still Wakes the Deep.
Oh, Still Wakes the Deep is very high up for me in visuals. I think the visuals of that game are really impressive. It's very much walking simulator set on an oil rig, but it's one of those games where kind of does what I think of The Last of Us originally doing, where, when you go into a room and you're like, this is a real room. This is a room that someone is in and lives their life in. Like, everything feels so perfectly fleshed out, and it's gorgeous in terms of like fidelity, etc. as well. But it's just this it's got this just sort of very realistic lived-in oil rig with like all the like any notice board feels real, any person's bedroom and their little knickknacks, or
a lot of detail.
It's that sort of
park that for now. Then let's not.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because I wasn't certain it was a cut. I just have not seen it.
With the greatest respect, when we got 13, I don't think we were in monologue territory, and that sounded like where we were going with that. And not to cut you short. Not to cut you short.
Park your monologue, bitch.
Got it.
Yeah, park that. Too much talking from you. Pipe down. Right. I don't think Grand Blue Fantasy Relink makes this list. Do you think?
Oh, I don't know. It's stunning.
Do you know what? No, it doesn't.
No,
The reason it doesn't is because of the Sky Battle stuff. You go from a world where the world looks stunning. It's all different. You know, the biomes, the characters are all well designed.
A while. I'm just trying to remind myself.
You go to the flying stuff, and the flying stuff looks like it's a generation old. The flying stuff looks old.
Nice. I've forgotten how nice. Sorry,
look at the flying stuff. Like it is.
Are we trying to chop this to 5? Then it's probably not going to survive.
It's definitely not going to make a top 5. It's not a complete enough visual package. I don't think. I think it has some really stunning stuff in it.
Yeah, no. To be fair, sorry, I probably undersold it in my memory, but
but it also has some stuff that's like okay. Like some of the towns are like. I hate using the word generic, but they are very generic of its style RPG. They look just like you could be playing Visions of Mana, you could be playing Tales of Arise, and you wouldn't know. And some of the Sky Battle stuff is just straight up like, I don't think the enemy design have as much care and attention as some of the other enemies in it. I would cut Grand Blue, not because it looks bad, because it's stunning in places, but it's not quite a complete package that you'd want a top 5 number to be.
What about Dragon Quest 382D, HD2D?
Are we cutting Grand Blue?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no one fought for it.
Chris?
I mean, I offered it.
It is on Mr. White's list.
Oh.
Sorry, Chris.
But it's not making it, is it? It's just not.
I don't think it's going to survive the cut.
I'm looking at some of these others and going, I don't see how it can make it.
Yeah,
I just can't.
What did you mention, Chris? Nick,
I mentioned Dragon Quest 3D, 3HD, 2D, 2D, R2D2, C3.
I was going to ask about this.
Double action counter rabbit.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Wolf Alpha Squadron. Is this really best visuals, or is it just because it was really basic back in the day and now it looks less basic? And I can't think of better words to say it than that, but you know what I'm trying to get at. Like, is it? This isn't anywhere near like Octopath Traveler or anything like that.
That's where, that's the level we have to go to. I think it's
Triangle
a very
strategy, Octopath.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
it's
they're
not that.
Looking Lyle.
I think they are. Yes,
and they're not this year, so it's not fair. But
yeah, I'd like to say yes. I think that. It's a very big upgrade, and it does still look gorgeous. It has a lot of very nice areas, environments, etc. But I do think if you're talking HD 2D, that art style that we all know and love, there are better examples. And like, although it's gorgeous and a really lovely thing to be able to play as this modernized, very much refreshed version of this like very, very classic JRPG, it's not Octopath 2. It's not that level of like ridiculously. Fucking hell, that's gorgeous. You know,
where you just like jaws agape on the title screen, like, yeah.
Do we, by a similar rationale, maybe cut? Are you doing Chronicles?
That was going to be my next suggestion. I think that's a fantastic video game, but I don't think it's the best looking game.
No, I love it. It's one of my favourite this year.
We did miss it on Best Audio for some of those dialects conversations, but it would have got cut. But some of those accents are fucking superb on that game.
I don't think it makes it for best visuals. Again, there are better examples of the sort of that art style.
And I do think
for me, Octopath 2 set that's a high bar for visuals.
I love that this game exists in the visual form that it does.
Yes,
but I don't think that's enough for it to stay on this list to the top 5.
Oh, I love it. It's modern,
but I think,
which is.
I love what it does, but I think it is a cut.
Yeah,
and it's probably staying on this list as long as it's probably
as well.
Say again.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Lyle. It does. It's better looking than Dragon Quest, but I think it's still.
Yeah. That puts us in 10 as well, which is good going.
Yeah,
cutting it.
Do it.
We are down to 10. Let's give you a little recap of those 10. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Still Wakes the Deep, Stellar Blade, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Silent Hill 2, Astrobot, Black Myth Wukong, Visions of Mana, Dragon Age the Veilguard, and Mario and Luigi Brothership, which I think is the next cut.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
it
because I think that should be cut based on what I've seen in videos, but I haven't played it. So
it's a gorgeous looking game. Unfortunately, what they do is reuse. They dull the initial impact of each environment, each level, each character design is dulled by the repetition that you start out thinking, wow, that's cool. And then you realise they're using the same cutscene each time you complete an island or connect an island. And you're like, And also it doesn't run brilliantly, which I know is not like a best visual thing, but it kind of is because it impacts...
Kind of is.
It does sort of, I think that's why no one's put Zelda on here, if I'm honest, because of the sort of frame pacing and it's not a new, environment but I don't think Mario and Luigi Brothership is on here.
Yeah, I also think the Zelda thing suffers from a visual point of view, but it's less astounding from a visual point of view because it's heavily borrowing from what we've seen before from the remake of Link's Awakening. Yeah. For better or worse, it's not bad, but I think you go, oh, is that memorable this year? Not as much.
But with Brothership as well, and I do think in this case it has to come into it. Like I'm the only person who's played it, I think, out of all of us, so it's a moot point, really.
Yeah. I do think. I think you guys being very kind, but I think there's an obvious cut that people are not saying because they like me too much.
I think that's a really good looking game, man.
I do, but
Mana, but I don't. Right.
I think it's lovely.
Before we do this, I have to ask you a question, and it is mostly to you, this one, because I know you're probably the only person who loves this game as much as I do. So I'm going to ask you the question. Is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth one of the best looking games of 2024?
I would cut Visions of Mana easily before it.
Okay, that's why I'm asking. I have to ask.
No, because some of the things I was talking... I think... Oh, it's so difficult, isn't it? Like, in certain aspects, I think it's beautiful. I think the main character models in that game are amazing, and the emotions that they convey through the facial expressions on that game, alongside the audio that we just talked about, is what makes some of the emotional deliveries in that game so powerful, despite it being, juxtaposed by the absolute batshit craziness that it delivers in spades. But it still manages to land really serious moments because of that combination.
The Pokemon Sujidex stuff with the designs of the enemies.
Yeah, all of that.
No, I'm wrong. Shut up, Adam. You're not talking sense.
Yeah, no, I think,
the fucking enemy design for those Sujidex, man.
I mean, some of the puns get me, but the translation on that is superb because some of the puns on the
I forgot the name of the island. What's the island called in it?
I call it King Dodongo, but I know it's not. It's
Dondoko?
Something like that. Dodonko, I think.
The Animal Crossing mini game.
Animal Crossing
mini
stuff,
game.
yeah.
It's a full game. Like that's got its own style and its own. I'm being stupid. Visions of Mana. Let's come back to it. Come on.
I think Visions of Mana, like me and you are the only ones that have played it. I think that's the first thing. I think it's very pretty. I think it's making top 9, right? I think it
has moments a bit like Granblue where sometimes it looks better than others. Is that fair? You played more of it than me, so...
No, there's sometimes when I'm playing it and you catch it right, and it looks lovely. Like the whole world looks really lovely.
It looks like concept art.
Yeah, and it's so nice. And then there's other times where you're like,
it's
fine. Don't look at that too long.
Yeah.
Let's pan past that a little bit. And so therefore, in good conscience, and I think combined with the fact that 3 people haven't played it and therefore are going on pictures and videos, I feel like, thanks guys, but
we're down to 8.
Yeah.
God, we're getting there, huh?
Fucking hell. There's 2 left that I would contend.
For cuts, you mean?
Would suggest to cut. Yeah, there's 2 now. One of them you're not going to like. One of them you might not mind too much.
I'm not going to like any of them, I don't think.
Yeah,
there's one I don't care about, but
same.
It's Lyle.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, I'm not.
Sorry,
still waits the deep.
No, but I have little frame of reference for that.
Yeah.
So that's why. But
what's the 2, Mick? Come on, what's your 2?
So the first one is Veilguard. because of the 3 or maybe 4 primarily action-focused games on there, I think it's the one that for me stood out less in terms of enemy design, visual design, location. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit of a close one with that and Stellar Blade in terms of, I think, enemy design. And I don't think the Veilguard does that much. That it's a very good looking game. But I think
it front loads some of the visuals. Like when
that's
you
what I was
start
going to
playing
say.
that game, you're like,
the bit in the
whoa,
city,
they kept this quiet.
The
and
bit
some of the bigger
the
set
beginning,
pieces are very impressive. But
but I just think, and I mean, number 8, because we're going to come to Black Myth, and I'm probably going to have to fight for that a little bit. But I think if I'm going by just based on the type of game where it's very fast paced, it's action oriented, it's open, I think if I was going to put Stella and Black Myth and Dragon Age into a pot, I would lose Dragon Age and Stella first. I just don't think it does it. Like it's got some decent animations. The character models are great. I had issues with the armor design that just bugged me throughout, just because I think some of it's just a bit OTT. But it's I play Warhammer games, but like
I was about to say, fucking like Space Marines, but
yeah, but no, I just think Dragon Age is a very good looking game. I'm not knocking it for being an attractive game. But I don't think it does anything that I haven't seen Dragon Age do before, especially enemy design. The enemy design is very uninspired.
As someone who played Inquisition again this year, it is a big step up.
Oh yes,
but I do agree.
Fucking has to be.
Well,
yeah,
but I do think
10 years in the making, you'd kind of
you would hope so.
Yeah,
but
I think I was more impressed with the character models than the other stuff in Veilguard.
Character models are beautiful. I do think the main ones.
Oh yeah, I mean, I fell in love with Neve immediately, but
yeah, can we get a name right? Is that right? Can we
call it Neve? I will say that
but they call her different things throughout the game.
Before we cut it,
Nev
I
Campbell
just
is Nev.
Call out some of the cool shit. Like there's a choice early on where you take someone with you in like the prologue area, and they get beaten shitless by things,
and they stay bruised,
and that bruising takes like through the game. To heal.
They heal very slowly. Like,
and I think that's quite a cool little thing. And I do think also in terms of customization, like it is hugely customizable for the main protagonist. But I can't really go. So it makes top 5. Like I can't. I don't know how Chris and Lyle feel.
It's difficult because I'm trying to separate because like I haven't played 2 or 3 of the games on this 8. So my top 5 would, by default, might be some of the. So it's difficult. I can't argue hardly against what you're saying. I'm just. I don't know how good Still Wakes the Deep is. Like, I haven't played Stellar Blade apart from seeing images of arse and tits. So we're gonna have to come on to that.
I have to say,
that's the best place to come on to.
But that is that's the only animation I've seen on that. So we're gonna have to talk about that.
Still Wakes the Deep is going to be a tough one because Lyle's the only one who's played it. It's not on anyone's list, so we are going to have to address that at some point.
And then put it 6.
Well, I didn't say that, but
no, but I think I don't know. Is anyone going to fight for Veilguard? Is Veilguard on Chris's list? Chris
no. Stellar Blade
it would probably be on my list, but I haven't done the lists for these, so I'm just trying to think how high it would be.
Can you propose an alternative cut? I mean, even if it's just for now to move us along.
Even if I remove the 2 games I haven't played,
Chris, because he hasn't played,
it'd still be number 6.
Yeah, it wouldn't be top 5 for me. It wouldn't.
I mean, if it's not top 5 for Chris, it's not top 5 for Adam. It's not top 5 for Mick. Lyle, what is it? Is it
not? It's not top 5 for me.
Well, then let's move on because it's ripped the plaster off and you're all wrong. So let's just move on. Right, it's fine. I'm a big boy. I do think at this stage, when there's 7, we need to talk about Still Wakes the Deep because we've got to cut 2 games, and if only one person's played it, unless it's like your guys are all going to regret not playing this, then I think we need to talk about it and say whether it's monologue worthy so that we keep it, or whether it's another
A eulogy time.
Well, no. What was that? What was that game that Chris did it for, and then you all ignored him? What was that? It was the Tolkien game, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
Middle Earth.
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor, where he just
Mordor.
not rambled, but he did a monologue for 10 minutes. You went, "That's great, Chris, but we're cutting it."
An impassioned.
Proper impassioned. Yeah. I was with him, and then you guys just went, "Nah."
I would like to ask regarding Still Wakes the Deep. Is it on Chris's list?
No, mate. Sorry.
It's not. That's
wild. I can tell you that Stellar Blade is.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll
probably guess the other
then,
two now because I've
make
revealed three of them. What? Sorry.
Okay. But I'm going to eulogize then. It needs a bit more of a shout out. I didn't get to do my full monologue earlier.
No.
So yes, I'd just like to say it has, I think, some of the best creepy mutant monster designs that I have experienced in that sort of way that Adam was saying before about Silent Hill, how it's like, well, we're all desensitized to this. Like, the monsters aren't going to be the thing that scares you. It's the sound in Silent Hill. In Still Wakes the Deep, I think that the designs of the mutant monsters are like the best I've seen in terms of like moving in a sinister way, all being completely different, all these sorts of things. I think it's really, really good at that. I think there's a lot of like quite spectacular outside of the oil rig bits with like very beautiful like sea vista-y things, and like, you know, it's got really good water effects and all sorts of different things that I think alongside the other things I already mentioned, the sort of like very like more realistic and well-designed environments, like real lived-in locations, etc. I think it's a really good one for that. I think the visuals help. Just all of this combined makes it for a really, really impressive visual spectacle. I absolutely adore how it looks. I think that's one of the things that's most impressive about it, and it's just a game that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't really planning on playing it. I had a friend over and we needed something to play that was like not that long while he stayed over for a couple of nights, and it just sort of we span a wheel between 3 games to see which one we picked, and it happened to be Still Wakes the Deep, and it's like almost on my own personal Game of the Year top 10 list, and I have a lot of affection for a lot of parts of it, and the visuals are maybe one of the most impressive things it does. But if I'm the only one who's fighting for it, if Chris White, I'm glad I talked shit about Silent Hill in the first episode because he hasn't put it on his fucking list. So, yeah.
In his defense, I don't think he's played it.
I thought he reviewed
actually,
it.
shit, he's reviewed it.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Lyle.
Wait,
announce that.
Scandal.
No, he did. No, I for some reason I thought you did because of the way you were talking about it. No, he reviewed it. It's the Chinese room, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. I did want to. I just.
Yeah.
So
it's all good.
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
I assume we're getting rid of it, unless people thought my speech was good enough that you'd rather get rid of something else.
Shit.
Welcome.
Move on.
Great, thanks. We'll just let Mick talk about Destiny again, shall we? He's allowed to do it, and he gets his right.
Absolutely not. No, we do need to cut one more game still. We've got Like a Dragon, Stellar Blade, which we haven't talked about, Final Fantasy VII, which we haven't talked about, Silent Hill 2, which we've not talked about in this category, Astrobot saying. In fact, we've not talked about anything here apart from Like a Dragon. That would have been a quicker thing to say.
I feel like it's either going to be Stellar Blade or Black Myth that get cut. I feel like from this list.
Do agree, I think.
Now, because I don't think anyone's going to... I can't speak for Silent Hill 2, but I know a lot of people said it was gorgeous. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is spectacular looking. You guys have already said that you champion Like a Dragon.
Let me
Astrobot, I wonder
just
if anybody...
posit something towards you. Silent Hill 2 is not in Chris White's top 5 for best visuals.
What the fuck has he put on his list?
And we did discuss about how some of the areas are just too dark.
I do remember you talking about that.
I do think it's a beautiful looking game. Like, it's really, really cool.
It is. It's got like an urban explorer vibe of like these very realistic, like dead buildings, you know? It's a very pretty game for it.
It's a very derelict.
It is. It's derelict.
So,
I need a derelict in a
Chris
minute.
Hyde, talk to me about Black Myth Wukong and how you think it looks.
So I have
because I know how Mick thinks it looks as well.
So I do have a question for Mick, right?
I bet it's the same one I have, but go on.
So I noticed this in images of this game, and then I also noticed it whilst playing it. It's a very odd question, so I have to get your opinion on it. Does this game look furry to you in its visuals? Because to me, the visuals at times I can't quite describe what I mean, other than that the visuals look a bit fuzzy or furry in their execution rather than clean. And I don't know how else to ask that question, but do you even know what I'm talking about?
I kind of do.
It's clearly a style.
But I think it was a stylistic thing that I liked. So I think it does have that a little bit. There's a almost watercolory thing to it, I think, and I don't know if it's because they do it with the motion blur to hide some things or to maybe deflect from some of the textures that aren't always. I don't know what it is. I do know what you mean. But I do think it's deliberate.
Moment. I've played a chunk. I've not played a large chunk of it, right? I think Adam, I played about the same as you, right? Because I haven't gone back to it because of what I've had to play to get, for some of the later days of this conversation. I had to make a choice, but I really enjoyed what I played, and I think this game looks really nice. I have found that in what I've played so far, jarring's too strong an emotion, but I've noticed it a lot, and I was just like, that just seems odd. And maybe it's because I expected it to go for, because everyone has been lauding these visuals, right? From what I've read, quite rightly so. And I guess
Engine in it, the new Unreal Engine, and
and in my mind, I guess I was expecting, rightly or wrongly, not the furry effect that I saw. And maybe it's just
to be, because if you put it next to something like Stellar Blade's got very clean
lines. Yes, exactly.
It's very clean lines, very pretty.
We can't take this into account because it's just not fair to. The PS5 Pro upgrade for Stellar Blade is up there. It's not up there as one of the other games on this list, but it is like, you imagine, it's hard to describe. What do I say, Mick? Imagine how it looked, but even cleaner and more 4K.
Yeah. But the trouble is, the thing about Black Myth though is that it's not necessarily that I would put it on this particular list for. It's not necessarily how clean the visuals are. It's more a case of like
the variation of boss design for me, like the amount of different enemies.
So this is it. So you've got 80-something bosses in that game. They reuse. I mean, we've had this conversation with Elden Ring a couple of years ago, how many bosses and how many areas are reused. Black Myth Wukong doesn't do that. It reuses one or two of the bosses out of a roster of 80.
I was going to ask this because I'm only in as far as Adam, and I've seen it reuse the same one twice.
They've reused. There's like a giant frog that it kind of reuses a couple of times.
The one I've seen is like a giant baby monster thing.
Yeah, they use that. I think that's twice or maybe 3 times. It's got different colours and different animations and moves and stuff, but essentially, they reuse it.
But the rest are all different.
And there's one other,
twice.
Yeah, and it's not only that they're different, but I mean they've got some of the design.
The movesets and everything are different, and the way
the guy that turns into a snake. I mean that like some of the visual design is it's Sekiro level. And some of it maybe pushes, but I think that it's, if you had, like I said, if I had to put this next to Stellar Blade, because Stellar Blade is one of my favourite games of the year, and it's spectacular looking, and yes, there's a lot of ass in it, which I'm not going to say that doesn't sway me, but if I go by pure like enemy design, level design as well, because Wukong has some fucking spectacular looking areas, and every area, I know this is another thing that a lot of games do anyway, but every area looks and feels really fucking different. Like Stellar Blade does big deserts 2 or 3 times.
Oh, hang on, Mick, I want to ask about that because I've only played an area that's foresty, right? And one of the things I was quite surprised about is that it's quite linear. Like there's a lot of areas I feel like I could climb or get to, but you just can't.
Yeah, it has a lot of areas where that
changes as you play.
Not really. So later on, there's a couple of areas. There's one particular area about midway through where you sort of wash up on a beach because of whatever, and the area it's then is quite open. Like there's a lot of side paths and routes that loop back on themselves and things like that. So it does. There are areas that open up. But again, if I was to put it next to something like Stellar Blade, which is the next closest probably to it on this list, Stellar Blade has a lot of open space, like in the two main open areas are like just quite big deserts, and they're very samey, like the big second area and the big final area.
I think the second desert is very deserty. I think the first one's more of a like wasteland, and I think it's I think there's because I've been back to that area a few times because there's optional bosses and stuff to go back to in that, and I'm like there's one where I just keep going down these. I'm going down and down and down into caverns. There's a boss battle at the bottom of it, and I'm like, wow, this map's way bigger than. And I also like
Stellar Blade does a thing as well.
Two different types of open world. One like you just don't get a map for because it's a more linear, traditional hack and slash adventure level, and then you do have these open. I think they mix it up and I do quite like as well that although the world is this, I don't want to say post-apocalyptic because that's not quite what it is. Well, it is.
It is.
It is and isn't. I think the areas are really varied, and I think the enemy designs. Like, I'm quite surprised by how much variety there is in Stellar Blade because although some of them look similar to the other enemies, that's more because they're of the same kind of genome, if you will, but they're a different enemy with different moves. Black Myth Wukong, my only problem with visually is I find it almost a bit too busy. It just seems like there's too much.
I kind of like that though. Maybe it's an opinion thing, but I mean,
definitely.
again though, when even like minor enemies aren't reused very often in Black Myth. Like every
100%.
area has its own, and they don't do that thing where you meet a boss and then the boss becomes a minor enemy in the next area. They don't do that.
Which they do in Stellar Blade. Well, not minor, but yeah, they do that.
And I think as well. I mean, there's bits. I don't know how much of Black Myth Wukong you've seen, but the little so in between each chapter there's like a visual, like an anime kind of like story, and they go on for like 6 or 7 minutes. They're not short things, it tells a story, and all right, admittedly it's difficult to have a through line with this game because it does tell a big story in a compressed space, and it does, like, I have my issues with some of the storytelling, the way they do it, but those particular moments just visually are absolutely incredible. And I mean, without spoiling too much, they just come at the midpoint between chapters. And like I said, some of them go on 5-6 minutes, and they tell a really coherent story without dialogue. They're fucking gorgeously animated, like they're absolutely beautiful. And I just think I'm putting this, I may be, being a bit presumptuous to put this up against Stellar Blade, and say that one of these is going. But out of this list, if Silent Hill isn't, I think it's probably going to be one of these.
I think Silent Hill 2 is the one that goes, and I think Stellar Blade and Black Myth are 4 and 5 in whatever order.
I would be happy with that because Silent Hill's the only one I haven't
and he's
played
the biggest,
now.
A proponent for Silent Hill 2. It's not on his list.
What is his list? I'm baffled by his list more than anything else.
I will tell you, but it's. I can't lie. His top 2 are pretty much my top 2, but as I say, the 5 for him is Indiana Jones, 4 is Grand Blue, and 3 is Stellar Blade. So we can't really. But I think Silent Hill 2's gone. I really do.
I'm happy with that because I really don't want to lose Black Myth or Stellar Blade. I just assumed that it was.
It's on mine, yeah.
It's on yours.
It is probably better looking than Black Myth for me, but I've only seen the opening area of Black Myth, so I can't really.
But I mean, the thing I would do to try and switch this up is say something that puts something that is not even been like suggested currently out of here. But I don't like how Like a Dragon really looks much at all. So that's my only thing. That's the only thing I'd be trying to.
The visuals are what I remember of that game.
Like I would just say it's like I remember it is the game.
The sea and
there are things
that you get like in the mini games, like the crazy taxi on a bike where he goes up the side of the visuals.
I mean, it has wild stuff that happens, but like I'd say that in the same way as like, yeah, wild shit happens in Deadly Premonition, but I wouldn't be putting that up in best visuals either. Like it's, I don't know.
That's harsh, Lyle.
It is harsh,
brutal.
but it's a game where like no part of me thinks of that game and thinks of like the visuals even slightly. It's like the 50th thing I'd think about when thinking about Like a Dragon. And I know I didn't like it as much as other people, but it's just one of those things where it's like, it sure looks like a video game, I guess. I would put it.
Also not on Chris White's list.
And
so
I know
it does sound like it's a low.
Where is it on yours?
Me?
Yeah, how high is it on your personal list? You and Chris Hyde, because you're the only two that will have it on a list.
4 or 5. I think 4. I think 4. Yeah, I think 4.
But I
I've
reckon
played some Wukong, and I think that game really does look quite spectacular in its own right. I was more on the Mick side of that argument in particular anyway. I was like, Jesus, this like that's a game where when I think about when I was playing it, I didn't necessarily like everything, but like the visuals is one of the first things I do think of about that game. And the designs of all the different enemies.
It sounds like a Dragon's going, unless Chris Hyde has... I do understand what you're saying overall.
It's really difficult because, yeah, like I'm probably there's probably never like I really like the main character models and how they tell that story, and that story is really really important in that game. And there are lots of moments we can't talk about that now, right? No. Because that's literally different categories. Stories and moments, right? And characters are all different categories.
Which we'll get to. But like they're the visuals for me. And obviously it's bright and colourful and batshit crazy with the direction and the art direction that it goes in. But I think I do think to say it looks like a video game is very condescending for what this game is. It is a little bit.
Visually.
It's when you compared it to Deadly Premonition, I thought that's like, come on now.
Yeah,
come on.
The game that looks like it was shut out. No, I just like.
Now come on, you know.
Am I getting it confused with another game?
No, it's definitely that one. If you're thinking a game that looks like it was shut out by someone in a fever dream, probably is Deadly Premonition.
I don't know. I'm just like, how much passion is there for Silent Hill 2? Like real, like passion to keep it. Like, because I've not heard anything. Like,
I mean, for me, for Silent Hill 2, I think that world is one of the most like there wouldn't be in the same way that it kind of had it for the audio. It's like that world wouldn't really exist in the same way if it didn't have that.
It's iconic, isn't it?
It's very iconic, and it's not just that it's iconic and it's like, oh, and it's back again. Like it's been very like I don't even like the game, but the world's been incredibly lovingly recreated. It's been done exceptionally well in that regard. I just think in terms of how each environment looks. I mean, I can't speak for the dark sections later on, but that sounds more like it's a choice of they wanted those sections to be dark rather than like it looks bad, you know? And I don't know.
But is this a case of like you didn't like the game that much, but you'll champion the visuals? Is this not a case of it being objectively better, but the personality in something like a dragon?
Objectivity has to disappear. Like we can't.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if Silent Hill 2 really beats out Like a Dragon based on pure fidelity.
I mean, but I don't think it's just pure fidelity, though. I think it's how it's not just like it's like it looks real. It's like it looks like a horror fucking nightmare.
I just worry. The atmosphere. Like a Dragon, some of the stuff that I'm not going to get into spoilers, but the boss designs, the enemy designs, visually mad, just so cool. I
mean, if
it's not going to make it, we can't.
Can we vote? Have we got enough disparity to vote? It was because one's on Chris Hyde's list and one isn't.
Or do you want to vote on what's cut?
Well, I think we're talking now Like a Dragon or Silent Hill 2. I think that's where we've fallen. One of those is number 6.
Feels like there's a massive gulf between 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 5. I will say that. Yeah. I think there's 2 locks here that we haven't talked about. And then there's a massive
Astrobot
chasm.
and Final Fantasy 7 are locks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. It feels like what this conversation is, and we're kind of arguing over the placing of the other 4.
Yeah.
I
Does Stellar Blade make this list?
I basically don't know much about
Stellar Blade. It's really hard. I only know the crude shit about Stellar Blade. I need someone to tell me.
I think the best thing about Stellar Blade is the gameplay. Genuinely. Like, it is a game that it is kind of unfortunate the main character is designed the way she is, because the gameplay is one of them games I've been asking for fucking ages. It is not a Souls-like. It is just a Devil May Cry action game. And even at first, it confuses you. You think it's a Souls-like, and it's only once you get to the more open stuff, you're like, it's just Devil May Cry, but with a Bayonetta style.
Yeah.
I don't think the visuals are what makes that game.
And this is what I was sort of getting at originally when I originally put it up against Black Myth. I thought because I didn't think I was going to dislodge Silent Hill or Like a Dragon anyway, so it was going to be Stellar or Black Myth. I thought from that.
I'd rather keep Like a Dragon over Stellar Blade purely because I think the stuff that
and I'd sooner keep Black Myth over.
Well,
Stellar
Black Myth's
Blade.
not going. I think we've established that it's not in the conversation of dropping. I would rather drop Stellar Blade than I would Like a Dragon, just because of the enemy design of Like a Dragon is so, and the whole Sujimon thing, which is Pokemon, and like the variation, and the fact that you literally, I'd have to spoil.
Look, Stellar Blade doesn't do enough.
It is varied.
Yeah, Stellar Blade doesn't do enough with its locations for me. It doesn't. It simply doesn't. There's not enough. There's a point in Stellar Blade where you're in.
Yeah,
when you're in one of the deserts or wastelands, because it shows you like an oasis that's gorgeous, and then doesn't take you to that.
No, I'm cutting Stellar Blade. I know it's Chris's number 3, but I'm cutting it, and unless I hear otherwise now, because
he's a filthy fucking pervert. So that's the only reason it was that high for him, anyway.
Yeah,
she's gorgeous, though.
Right, hang on. I need to just do some rejigging of the list because it's currently definitely not right. I'm not saying this is right. I just need to move the top 2 to be in the top 2. Right. I think Like a Dragon's 5 based on the chat. Chris Hyde.
I'd put Silent Hill 2 as 5.
I would go Silent Hill, then Like a Dragon.
Yeah, that's what I'd do.
And I would swap 2 and 1 and call it.
I would swap 2 and 1 and lock it. That's what I'd do, but that's me.
I would also do that. Yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
We haven't even discussed Astrobot, but Astrobot is just fucking. Again, it's joyous. It's just
what I want to point out is I feel that people will talk about Astrobot and go how crisp it is and how colourful and the level design and how that's all. I want to point out the cameo bots or whatever you want to call them. I forget what they've called them now, but the bots based on other games, and I want to call out in specific. So you unlock.
It annoys me there was no Sweet Tooth.
There's definitely going to be DLC for that game. I'd be shocked if not, because there are some characters that are so noticeable by their absence, and they are, in fact, funnily enough,
currently occupying the number 1 spot.
Yeah, but like I like the fact that, and I'll give one example here. Like you get Ryu and Ken, okay, but then you go to the gacha thing where you pull and you get the balls. You can get a thing for each of them that changes their animation, and then you can go up to them, and they bothered to put in a little animation for every character.
Can I just say,
wild.
I don't have many gripes with this game, if any, but could they have done it where I could have bought more than one ball at the time in that fucking machine?
You've got to crush them. You've got to spend that moment.
I couldn't give 2 shades of shit. I was there for fucking ages at the end of that game. I had enough, and I just wanted to get all of them out.
Okay, that's fair. But that's currently number 2, and it looks like we're giving the best visuals to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is, and I mentioned it, funnily enough, with Stella, like a PS5 Pro version of that is. I mean, I always thought this game looked good.
I never spent so long on a beach level in a game either.
On so many levels, right? You've got the character models themselves, which means that the kind of story beats just land and the interactions land. You've got the overarching, I guess, kind of like vistas and broad level design, which is really good. The combat visuals are outstanding and amazing, and again, we talked about it the other day about different characters and viabilities and stuff. You'll see all of them because you'll change between the characters and the different styles that they've got. That game is, visually.
When you first walk into that very first open section with the grass and the greenery,
I
know what people said about it, but I was like, wow.
No, shut your ass. It's great.
I've been back there since on the Pro, and I don't even know how to explain it because I know you guys feel the same. It's just... It almost looks like it is on a new. Well, it is a new console, but it almost looks like that a game that came out on 2 different generations.
The combat, the in-engine, everything's in-engine. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous.
And I love the fact, and this is, I'm sure you guys will agree, but I love games where it's like, I can stand on a really high point and I can just fucking see everything. I can go and explore everywhere, and it's a world that is just, it's there and it's for me. Like whether it's the canyon, cosmic canyon, or whether it's that that initial open area stuff. Just
I know you said
it.
you didn't play the original, but Lyle, how well did they nail some of the bits that you had in your head as
yes,
I'm thinking of
absolutely.
specific amusement parks, shall we say?
Yes, that was my. I thought about saying that.
Like, did they ever nail? And I know it shouldn't be a shock because they did a lot of that with Remake, but like,
they did. But
that was
they still did it again.
Where you're like,
I imagine there's lots of times where you're like, oh, I can't wait to get to this bit.
There's a certain. No point in saying it. I won't spoil. There's a certain bit we still haven't quite got to that I'm looking forward to, but like that bit in particular was one of those where you're like, yeah, they get it. We've locked it. There we go. Best visuals for 2024. In 5th place, Silent Hill 2. In 4th place, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. 3rd place, Black Myth, Wukong. 2nd place, Astrobot, and the best visuals of 2024, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And you'll be delighted to know that that top 2 is exactly what Mr. White wanted.
Yay!
Oh, lovely.
Happy as well. That is day 2 wrapped. Tomorrow, day 3, we will be back talking best multiplayer and best new character. So it's in the latter stages of day 3. We might get slightly spoilery because we're talking about new characters. Just touch. But not before day 4 where it is full on best story and best moment. Like, so finish up your games before you start that one. Later on this week, best most anticipated of 2025 and Game of the Year top 10. But that is it for now. Thank you to Lyle, Chris and Mick.
Cheerio, fellas.
And thank you to Chris White for sending in your list ahead of time. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
and we will see you tomorrow, I reckon. Bye for now.